far, only 3 people that are not coming.
Usually running from the bus. He's like down on the trend. No traffic.
Marty, he's good, right?
Yes. So they don't, he doesn't believe. There's three people. Jason doesn't believe too. And Francine, he doesn't believe. What is it? So, you're not friends with him?
No.
No, his colleagues.
Unless you feel otherwise, I don't think it.
No, I don't.
Comments, how many months you got? I think we're on the board for a year. How long?
Just looked on it, she was on, 2022.
Wait, you have a cheat sheet of
He
everything?
does.
I know, isn't that great? I love it. It's very organized.
That's amazing.
It is, it is.
You want a copy? I'll email it.
No, I'm just
can
saying
have
how
it.
organized you are.
Right,
That is
and look at his
amazing.
attendance. You see the attendance sheet?
I keep track of everybody's attendance.
And you will just, once we're done with roll call, you will just present what is this, your application will.
So you can see who they appointed and how many times they were here and not here.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Really, it's not a bad thing to do.
He's nervous.
I'm dealing with three homes of soil, and I learned from food guys less in the last 6 weeks dealing with Dutch. I can't even do it. No, that's a question I have to ask you about. So,
Three homes.
they're being-
Because of them, you can't get one?
they're holding me up, they want me to do all kinds of, they want me to, like, my present gutters that are already hooked up somewhere else into a dry pit. Yeah, but that's for their backwash water. But they want me to hook up my gutters, and you want more water, they have a calculation to do, they calculate out how much water is going into the ground, and how much they want to go into the dry well, to stay in there so it sits down and seeps into the ground. So it's unreasonable, my house is all the time, we're not gonna rip everything apart.
Yeah.
That's what I say. You're only doing a petition.
He's only putting in a pool, right?
Well, I did a petition already, that's not, but that has nothing to do with that, because that's on a separate permit and separate thing, and I have an exemption. So they should not equate the two, so I have to have some.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, it's 7 o'clock, it's 7:02, so did you want to wait a little bit, or you want to? Oh, he's here, oh, perfect, perfect.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the zoning board meeting of June 4th.
But isn't that,
Call to order,
you do it normally, right?
call to order.
Actually, I gotta do it.
Fran, 1 second, we'll get the meeting going.
I hereby announce pursuant to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act that adequate notice of this meeting has been transmitted on January 14th, 2024 by the Board Administrative Officer to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, the Township Clerk, and has been posted in the meeting room and in the entrance hall in Town Hall, all pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Roll call.
Pledge of allegiance. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Mr. Berkeley,
Present.
Ms. Campus,
Present.
Ms. Gerhard,
Present.
Mr. Giampolo,
Present.
Mr. Brazoka,
Here.
Mr. Luciani is absent, Ms. Costello is absent, Mr. Frigiola is absent, and Mr. Orfandopoulos.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we can stand for a pledge of allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence for honor our military, police, and first responders.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, minutes from 5/7. Board members, have you reviewed the minutes and have you made any recommendations for any updates or changes?
Yes, no changes for me.
Anybody? Nobody has changes? You want to point this out?
Yes, just a minor note here at the call to order. The meeting, the notice of the adequate meeting has been transmitted on January 14th. Change it to 2025 from 2024 on the first page of the agenda.
Oh, I see, yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, can I have a motion for the minute approval?
Motion to approve the minutes of May 7th, 2025.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Eligible to vote, Mr. Berkeley,
Yes.
Ms. Campus.
Yes.
Ms. Gerhard,
Yes.
Mr. Giampolo,
Yes.
Mr. Brazoka,
Yes.
and Mr. Orfandopoulos.
no, I'm not eligible. I wasn't.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. You absent. Thank you. The minutes for May 7th, 2025 were successfully adopted.
Okay. All right, first item on the oh, there's a resolution too, I'm sorry.
None.
Oh,
No
I'm sorry.
resolutions.
It's on the list, sorry. Public hearing, item number 1, go ahead.
Adrian Shakurti, 774 Holmdel Road, Holmdel, New Jersey, 07731. Installation of a 20 by 40 in-ground pool with bulk variances. Second, Tranquil.
No, don't read that without, just one at a time. Okay, so the mic is very important that you use that close to your mouth because everything is going over to the public. Yeah, keep it close to you. Kate, did you review this at all?
Let's swear everybody in first.
Okay.
Just swear everybody in.
It's just
Okay.
engineer.
So, we'll swear in our professionals as well as you, Mrs. Sturkey. You swear and affirm that testimony you're about to give is the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
For the record, the applicant as well as our professionals have been sworn.
Okay, so you don't have any comments on the variance that we know they're talking about?
No, I didn't, I did not review it. If I hear anything in the testimony
Did,
tonight, I'll,
Did Courtney write anything for us? Do you know offhand if she did? I didn't.
Yeah, there is a denial from the zoning officer.
Okay, so the applicant is asking, or he's denied for the following reasons. Pool requires a 100-foot setback from Mountains Place side, C1 is below. Pool requires a 100-foot setback from Hillcrest Road. And those are the two things that you're going to talk to us about. You read the paperwork when you submitted your application as to what you have to say today to the board, as far as why you want to do it and why you want a variance?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe that's correct, because he is an engineer, but that's what he is.
Oh, yeah, okay. You have some information before I get started with the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, yes, the variance is for a 100-foot setback from a road, which is section 3105. Essentially, the property is surrounded on 3 sides by roads. So even though the pool is behind the house in the rear yard setback because of roads on either sides, there's a dimension from the proposed improvement. We based it off of the distance which we provide on a plan from the walkway surrounding the pool to the streets, and that's less than 100 feet, so that's what the denial represents.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Okay, sir, it's all yours.
All right, my name is Ardian, and I live in 774 Holmdel Road. Hello, good evening first. And I am in front of you for I want to make a pool for my kids. We came recently to New Jersey 3 years ago. We left the place, and we hired Pool Town. We didn't know about variance or anything else before. I never been to a plant board in meet before, first time. And after we filed for the paperwork and everything else, whatever work they did, and they told us we needed the variance. And I think that why we should grant us the pool, because first, the house is almost standalone where it is. Beside that, one side is no outlet, is a dead end in one. There is no road, you cannot go nowhere from the mini place. Meaning that there is no really cars over there, 2-3 houses over there, there is nothing going on inside. Meaning there is not the area that you have so much cars or movement or something going on. besides the Holmdel Road, there is really the main road that there are so many cars passing by there that I don't think any issue to be anything that why not should be granted the pool, because from one side is 99, that should be 100, and the other side there is less, 77 is the dead end side that there is no really houses. And
Right.
And I think this is a good point first, that I don't think gonna be anything wrong by having a pool over there. The only thing gonna be more business for New Jersey, one. I think gonna be more taxes. I think gonna be local workers working, the pool town from New Jersey. And I think gonna be more jobs for cleaning the pool. And that's good for business.
Okay. I didn't ask you in the beginning, but is there any board members up here that you see you have a conflict that you know or would?
No.
No? Anybody here have any conflict with the
Irene
applicant?
is so pleasant.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Only ask her.
It's all good. Escrow is
So
updated.
basically, I'm looking at the plan here, and where you put the pool is exactly behind your house, which is a logical place to put it. And I don't see where else you could put it to eliminate the variance, so
There is
you
no-
kinda don't have too much of a choice, unless you had a small
And I
pool.
have just one neighbor on the back. I don't have really, there is a road from both sides.
Right.
And the closest neighbor should be really far, because it's the road mini place one side, and then the house is really far back from both sides.
Right.
And you sent them a notice that you were putting the pool in?
Yeah,
Okay,
I have
And-
all the paperwork
And they have no complaints?
no complaints.
Does anybody have, besides Jason, have comments or questions of the applicant?
I do. I thought when I was reading the application, there was something about the sewer or septic. Did you
No, but
outline?
the sewer septic is in front of the house, it's nothing
That's
to
what I'm
do.
saying.
Yeah.
It's been identified, it's
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the front of the
yeah, it's
house.
in front of
So
the
you're meeting the
house.
setbacks
We
and
have
everything for that?
nothing to do with that, I think, that's meeting the setbacks.
Okay.
Because it's in front. In front we have plenty of space, because it's the Holmdel Road in front.
Yeah.
And I think I'm stating an obvious point here, even if you move the pool more, I guess horizontal, if you
Yeah,
flip
we tried,
it still doesn't matter, right?
It still doesn't matter.
Yeah,
We
I can
tried
see
to do
that.
it horizontal, but it doesn't matter.
Yep, yeah, there's no way, the 69 feet to Manny Place is the issue, that's where really the variance
But
becomes a
from
problem.
the mini place is that dead end road.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is really,
I'm familiar with the area, I know the issue.
Okay, any other comments from any other board members?
Excuse me for not knowing, but what's the normal setback if he had a neighbor on that side? What would it be for a pool?
It's the same as the house. So it depends on the zone, but typically,
Is it 100 feet, Kate?
no,
Oh,
that's because it's 100 feet because this has 3 front yards.
Okay.
Right,
So it's
right.
like a corner lot on 3 sides, so it's
Right.
really like a hardship,
Okay.
honestly.
Yep.
But typically,
It would be less, in other
it would
words.
be something like
25
25,
feet.
35,
Yes,
yeah.
right,
Okay.
okay.
25 feet.
I just wanted to clarify.
For that zone, it would be 25 feet. So this is a real hardship because he's surrounded by streets.
I know it's, I live on the corner.
Okay. Vincent, anything? John? Okay, if nobody has any other comments, let me open up to the public. Does public have any comments on this application? Comments or questions? I see none. Closed public portion. Can I have a motion from somebody?
I would move to grant this application and allow him a variance to build the pool in his backyard.
I'll second that.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Berkeley?
Yes.
Ms. Campus?
Yes.
Ms. Gerhart?
Yes.
Mr. Giampolo?
Yes.
Mr. Marzocca?
Yes.
And Mr. Ofrandopoulos?
Yes.
Thank you. The application was approved. Congratulations.
Thank you very much,
Congratulations. Enjoy the pool.
The next
Okay.
applicant and me will need to regroup, so
Wait,
just
let
a few
me,
minutes.
Let me address everybody. Before we get started, I know everybody is excited to be here tonight, and we like to see an audience when we have our
Yes.
meetings. But the ground rules are that we have no cheering, no clapping, no words, no discussions, no raising hands. The only part you'll have is when I say it's time for the public to ask a question. At the end of the application, when everybody's done presenting, you may come up and make your comments on anything that you'd like to talk about. Questioning will be done as each professional speaks. So if they have engineers, or I don't know who they're going to have that are going to speak, those are the people that we can ask a question, we don't give a comment. Okay, so I'll let you know, but meanwhile, just hold on to your seat and don't say anything and keep it quiet so we can move along. Okay, now you may read it, Francine.
Okay. Tranquil Inspirations, Inc., 24 Shank Road, Holmdel, New Jersey, 07731, convert a residential dwelling into private outdoor learning center and daycare. The applicant also proposes to construct additional parking area and driveway.
Thank you. Before we get started, Jill was on the zoning board on 2022 for approximately 1 year. There are 3 members that are on this board, including myself, Francine, and Jason, that were members. And I just want to make sure that your applicant, or Jill, has no issues with that, and any of our board members have no issues being on the board to be part of this application. No, Francine, Jason?
I don't have any, no.
I don't. Okay, so it's up to you guys.
Good evening, Chairman. Dante Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. We have no issue as well.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure, because that would affect if we were going to go forward or not. That's why I brought it up first.
I understand.
Okay, so you may begin.
Thank you, Chairman. As I stated, my name is Dante Alfieri. I'm here on behalf of Tranquil Inspirations, Inc. The property address is 24 Shank Road. It's Block 17, Lot 3. As stated, we're here seeking the board's approval for a outdoor learning area, a daycare, and on the second floor is going to be a clothing for foster care. I have 3 individuals to provide testimony. We have Jill, who is she's the owner of Tranquil Inspirations. We do have our engineer and we do have our planner. So without further ado, I'll have the applicant.
Before we get started, I'm going to ask our planner to recap.
I'm going to swear everybody in, but ask about attachments.
Oh, yeah, is everything up to date with all the paperwork, notices, escrows, et cetera?
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, so let's swear everybody in first.
All your witnesses and the board professionals, everyone, just you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give regarding this application is the truth and nothing but the truth. So for the record, all 3 applicants, witnesses, and our professionals have been sworn for this one.
And we'll
Okay.
file them as they come up.
Yep,
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry I jumped to Kate too fast, Kate, huh?
That's okay.
So, Kate, can you tell us a little bit about what this is all about?
Yes, just give me 1 moment, please. I'm sorry. Lost my connection.
Put the
Hi,
plans
everybody.
up.
Good evening. This is an application for preliminary and final major site plan approval, also with D1 use variance relief. The applicant, Ms. Perez, is seeking to convert this dwelling, single-family dwelling located in the R40B zone for use as a daycare facility, a outdoor learning center. Those are slightly distinct uses, and I'll let their applicants, describe the difference there. And as well as using the second floor for storage and weekend operations for a nonprofit. So, it's kind of like 3 distinct uses that we're going to be looking at tonight. But I know when you look at granting the use variance, I want you to think about it all holistically, because this is a unique case. Because use variance is run with the land, but this is a situation where what Ms. Perez is proposing here tonight, this is what she wants to go forward with. This is going to be very specific, and it's going to be limited to what gets approved tonight. So, this isn't like, for example, if you were to approve this application, just to give you an example, and you approve this proposed upstairs, the second floor storage and delivery or pickup for this nonprofit, that wouldn't mean that someone can just come in and start running another nonprofit out of their full-time 5 days a week. It's very limited in scope. So just keep that in mind, that what you're going to be approving, it's not just like a blanket. If you approve this outdoor learning center, say she's looking for a maximum number of students, she can't just expand it or sell it to someone and they want to build they want to have 20 students or 25 students at a time. This is a use variance, which means that it's very limited in scope. So just keep that in mind, that this is not, if you do choose to approve this tonight, it isn't just like rubber stamping this for non-residential use. It's for this exact use, this combination of uses that you're hearing tonight. So I'm sure we'll hear a lot more testimony on that. Just another thing, a couple things that I just want to also discuss here is that in terms of the use, I believe the applicant is currently operating daycare out of this dwelling. That is permitted because and I go through this in my letter, it's a separate class of daycare. It's called family, what do they call it? Family home daycare. It's basically a provision in the MLUL where every single family dwelling, in any single family dwelling in a residential zone in the state, you're allowed to have a small scale, family run daycare run by someone who lives in the house. And it's basically meant to encourage other options, available options for families, keeping things local to home. However, it does have, the maximum number of children is five at one time. So that's permitted, and we'll hear testimony on that. And I believe they're proposing to continue that use, but it's no longer going to be, if you were to approve this, a family daycare home because it's no longer going to be a residential dwelling. So that's why it kind of all folds into the variance. And we'll hear testimony because I'm interested to know about like what the operations are now, how they're going to change, because they are going to add, they're proposing to add a larger parking area, pick up, drop off, et cetera, and we'll hear all about that too. So then finally, the last thing I would just note is that child care centers are considered to be inherently beneficial uses. This is something you see in the MLUL where you had, recently at the planning board, there was an application that was approved for a daycare center in an office building. And daycare centers, just like family daycare homes are permitted in residential zones, child care centers are permitted in any non-residential zone in the state. And that's one of the ways that the state, shows that they're inherently beneficial. But again, this is a single family residential zone, so it's not permitted, but it is a inherently beneficial use. So that's only a portion of the use here, and they'll put it on testimony with that. But basically that's where the board will look at this like a balancing test where you look at identifying the public interest at stake and how it rates, look at any potential harmful impacts, determine if there are conditions that could be imposed, and then you weigh the positive and the negative. So that really serves as the positive criteria there. So it's less high of a standard than a typical D1, and I will let their planner take all of that on.
Kate, I just interrupt you before I forget. You mentioned that this is called a family daycare.
It was.
So if it's family, I think I heard you say that the family has to be living in there?
And so if they get approved tonight, it will no longer be that.
But that's what it is today, though.
And I'll let them testify to that, but that's my understanding from the application. Because what they are currently operating a daycare there, but it meets the standard of a family daycare home per the statute, so they didn't have to come to this board. It's a very, very limited in scope.
And the limitation was 5 children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else, Kate? I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. No, I appreciate it. I'm not going to go through all of the bulk. There's just considerations with this. We're going to look at buffers. We're going to hear their testimony on impervious coverage, everything loading, everything that they're doing there. That is, basically all that I have. And we'll just wait to hear the rest.
Okay. Greg, do you want to say any quick introduction? Because really your main thing is after the engineer is on.
Correct, and I think that mine really related to more engineering items, and once the engineer provides his testimony, I can ask any questions
Okay.
from that point on.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Alfredo, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Keller, for laying this out. So we have tonight Ms. Perez, who is the...
Keep it next to you when you're
Do
talking.
you hear me?
Yeah.
So we have Ms. Perez, who is the...
Is it turned on? Is it on?
There's a red light on the
There's a
button.
switch underneath you.
No, it's on. It's on. But you need to put it within 5
hear me?
inches of your
Yeah,
mouth.
that's better.
Because it has to go over the air. It goes over the network. And if
Okay.
you're not talking closely, they can't hear out in TV land.
I understand. Thank you.
Or internet land.
YouTube.
So Ms. Perez is the principal of the applicant, Tranquil Inspirations, Inc. As Ms. Keller noted, that there is a current use at the property, so why don't we start off with that? Can you just describe what is currently on the site, and then we'll get into what we're proposing?
First, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity. It's been a couple years, and so I'm really grateful to be here right now. It is a residential dwelling, so I was told years ago that I could operate a very small home daycare, and that's what it's been. It's just been really for the local community. So there's a business next door, the dentist is there, and they utilize those services, and we have different children coming on each day, but it never exceeds 5 children. So that is the current use of the property. And then, yes, we have storage upstairs, which is the Village Foster Closet, and there are 3 rooms there. Each room represents different sizes of clothing, and then sorting that happens, and families will come and get what they need. The overall goal is just really to create an opportunity for families to raise healthy children, and so we're trying to meet that need in many different ways.
With regards to the current operations, what are the hours of operation?
So currently, students are dropped off between 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then they are picked up between 3 and 4. So there's kind of a staggered drop-off. Some parents come at 8:30, some come at 9 o'clock. So there really isn't a lot of traffic coming and going, and the same thing with pickups. Some pickup is at 2:30, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. It's just a couple of cars that are coming in and out.
Excuse me, did you say that's the current, or that's going to be what it's going to be in the future?
That is what it's going to be, yes. So we're not looking to change that.
So the latest they'll be there is 4 o'clock.
That is correct.
Okay.
So I would just ask to Dante and Jill, just to be clear, because I think the operation statement, the outdoor component is going to run differently, right? So I would just try to be clear, whether you're just referring to the daycare, because I understand the nonprofit is a different thing. It's volunteers on the weekend.
But that's together. When I say operation, is that everything stops at 4 o'clock, upstairs, downstairs?
We'll let her finish,
Yeah.
but yes.
We're only on the current use.
Yes.
We're gonna move
Oh,
on
okay.
to the proposed use now. So
Okay.
we just wanted to introduce what is currently
Okay.
there,
All
which
right.
is an operating daycare. So what's being proposed now is a daycare with outdoor learning, and then the second floor foster clothing storage, correct? So let's touch on how the daycare that we're proposing is going to operate as opposed to what's currently operating, and then what that outdoor learning center is going to be like.
Sure. So the property is a beautiful 3 acres, and the intent when purchasing it was to really maintain the garden, keep the garden state, and start with the youngest generation possible to really instill that message. So the goal is to have classes for children ages walkers to 5, kind of those early years, and just do a very short outdoor session. There's current models right now, and they operate for 45 minutes. They do an outdoor mud kitchen. Some families, they'll attend together, so it's really not even a drop off. And that's why the parking use may change slightly, because right now the drop off is staggered. There's not many cars coming, but if we do add this extra class for young children, then parents would be there and they would be staying with their children, so there would be more cars on the lot. They would be gone every hour. We're not proposing that we have classes every hour, but there would be classes a couple of times throughout the day. It, again, would be based on daylight hours, so the classes in the fall would end earlier than classes in the spring. But the goal is to have these very 45-minute short classes, children playing outside, parents being part of that, being present, and just kind of instilling this message of being outside and playing there instead of having kids behind screens. So that's where it will change slightly, is we may have 2 to 3 classes a day, and there would be that traffic coming and going.
That's with relation to the outdoor learning, correct?
The hours on that, you said they're different in the summer versus the winter. Can you give us an idea?
So it's subject to
The
daylight.
hours of the outdoor.
So to clarify, the outdoor learning experience would be subject to daylight hours, correct? So if the sun goes down early, the operation of the outdoor learning would cease. Obviously, during the summer, it has the benefit with the longer day to stay outside longer, correct?
So they could be out there at 8 o'clock at night in the summertime.
Probably not that late.
How many?
I think if we're looking to that age group, they want to be in bed by 8.
Well,
But
I don't know, that's why I'm asking.
maybe 7 o'clock at the latest.
Okay. The operations statement said 9 to 6 Monday through Friday. So just if that's not going to be the case, just make sure you get that on the record.
Okay.
So just the board. can
That's why I'm
consider.
asking the question.
Yeah.
If we did a class, it would end, some parents just kind of, I've researched this. So some families like to attend this after dinner, right? So there might be a before dinner class and an after dinner class, and then it would end at a reasonable hour, somewhere between like 6 and 7 o'clock.
So let's cap it at 7, let's say 7. All right, the
That
reason
works.
is there's a lot of neighbors out there, and that's gonna be things that they're gonna probably wanna know the answers to. So maybe I'm saving their questions from them asking.
Yes.
Okay, so the outdoor will end at 7, but what about, well, you're gonna talk about the other ones, the other two.
With relation to the daycare itself, which you already currently operating, what are the changes between what's currently operating? I apologize. So with regards to the daycare, you have a current operation. What are the changes from the current operation to the proposed operation? And then we'll touch on the hours of operation as well.
There's really no proposed changes to the existing daycare. Parents typically pick up by 4 o'clock. Sometimes they're running late, but those are the hours that we have been operating. We do have different staff there, and their hours are to leave at 4 o'clock.
Okay,
I have a question. You mentioned currently it's to take daycare for 5 children. But is that 5 clients? Like, in other words, do some kids come 3 days a week, but then you have another 5 kids coming 2 days a week? Approximately how many clients are you servicing as opposed to how many children are in the daycare at one time?
Okay, that's a great question. We have about 9 different families, and they do come on different days. So we have some families who just come on Monday, some who come Monday through Wednesday, some who come Tuesday through Friday. So it varies, and we keep track of that. And
Okay.
yeah, we have spreadsheets for that so that we always know who's coming and we can prepare for that.
So just give me a rough idea about how many children are you, not families, but how many children do you think you're taking care of currently? And then I'm going to ask what you propose.
In that space, currently with just the daycare, 9 children.
Okay, thank you.
And you're limiting the space to 5 still? 5 children at a time at the property?
Oh, okay.
And then the hours of operation, you noted it's 8 a.m. to around 4:30, depending on pickup.
so the new proposal is for 5 kids for the indoor nursery center at a time, at a day. From an 8 to 4, there's only gonna be 5 children there. Is that what you're saying?
So the scope of the nature following, under the current limits is 5.
You're essentially not proposing to change the operation of the existing,
That's what I wanna make sure I
Okay.
understand. So you're still gonna have 5 children in the indoor section.
Right, but the
But
outdoor.
that doesn't count the outdoor.
Correct, yes. The outdoor might bring in 10 children from the hours of 9 to, and actually, I would schedule in such a way, right, that drop-off of the daycare is not going to impact the students who are coming for the outdoor learning,
But
right?
the
So-
outdoor is not all day, it's only
No.
for 45 minutes an hour.
Correct.
So there might be a
Yes.
total of, let's say, 10 kids throughout the day, different times.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so 5 plus maybe 2 or 3, I would say at a time, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, keep going,
Question real quick.
go ahead.
Sorry if I misheard, but did I hear you say that during some of the activities, whether it was the indoor or outdoor, did I hear you say that parents would be present at some of them? Or would parents be present at all of them?
So there's a current model, it's called Sticks and Sprouts. You could go to that website, and they are very popular amongst families that have young children. And when they come to these events, sometimes it's the first time that child's there. The parents are not leaving a 1.5, 2-year-old alone. They are with them that whole time. So yes, there would be 10 children and then a parent or 2 parents or another carekeeper. So there could be, yes, there would be more than 10 people. There'd probably at least be 20 people because they wouldn't be dropped off.
All right, so just to be clear, during indoor sessions, there'll be as many as 5 children and as many as 10 adults, because there could be 2 parents for each child.
The outdoor session, yes.
The outdoor session?
Yes.
But the outdoor session may have as many as 10 children?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so then that would be 20 adults?
Yes.
Possibly 2 parents? Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Kate.
Yeah.
being that I'm a grandfather and I take my granddaughter to nursery school or whatever they call it every day, what makes what she's proposing different from a regular nursery school that we have all around town?
I can try to answer that question. There's a lot of different licensing factors through the state of New Jersey. There's a lot of different definitions, but essentially what the difference is that a daycare, the family daycare home that she currently operates, a typical nursery school, something where children, they stay for a longer period of time. I'm not sure if there's a specific time frame, but there's certain requirements for that. Something where you drop your child off for X amount of time and they're expected to, be fed, to be cared for in a certain way, versus, it's almost like the outdoor program for very young children, the very babies. What she's talking about is no different than, just anyone just going to like a yoga class, for example. Imagine if their parents were signing up for some kind of course. For older kids, it's like, I would compare it to like a gymnastics class or something like that, the outdoor sessions, because these are really going to be two completely different operations, right, Jill? Yeah. So that, I think you need to we just need to, it's a little confusing. It took me a little while when I was reviewing it to wrap my head around it, but there's really two distinct child-centered operations are being proposed on this site. The first is the 5-child daycare, which operates drop off in the morning, pick up in the afternoon. They have full-time staff taking care of the children. And then the other is more of like a class, like an experience-based class. It's because the parents may be there because of the ages, but otherwise, if you have kids who are a little older, it would be like going to piano class or something like that. That's how I would describe it.
And believe it or not, I still am not sure I understand the differences. What makes it, you said state, so she doesn't have state regulations and things like that with her school?
Well, I don't know for sure what the regulations are. That's out of my expertise. It's also out of the jurisdiction of the board. She would have to get anything that would be required. Would you could say that? But it's I don't know. Jill, do you have a
Is there
better
different
answer to
types
this?
of classes of daycare, what they consider like maybe A, this is what you can have, B, this is what you can have, C, is that what, I'm not familiar with all of that.
Well, so my goal was never to really engage in daycare. My goal was always to offer outdoor classes. And so what happens is a child has an experience outside, they enjoy it, they get comfortable, the parents like that relationship, and then they feel safe. Okay, my child's had this experience and you also offer daycare. Can I leave them for a day with you because it's a safe environment? So my plan was never to create a business of daycare. It was always to create this love of outdoor learning. And what happens is relationships are built and then parents feel safe dropping their children off. So I'm not a Goddard where you're dropping off 5 days a week. I need extra help on a day. Can you watch my child? They feel comfortable here, and this is a safe space. So that's kind of the marriage between all of it, right? Is that I want children playing outside. I want them healthy. I want to get to know parents. I want to build those relationships. I want to start with this generation to keep this the Garden State. And as you build those relationships, they feel connected. They feel connected to the people who are working those spaces, and then they want to stay with them. And it just makes that daycare component kind of a natural, it naturally occurs. And so we're providing that services for those families who have asked us, because that was really not the intent. We were asked over and over again, can we provide these services because our children like being here? That's really how it worked. I'm not interested in becoming a full-time daycare, to answer that question.
Okay, so that's what you're saying for the record, that you're going to keep it at the amount of kids, no matter how many parents want to come there. It's not going to increase. It's not going to be more kids going in another room and making another classroom or anything like that. It's staying at that size.
Yes.
Right?
That's correct.
And Dimitri, I can answer one state-related question, which is that as long for a child care center is defined only as something that has 6 or more children. And that is, part of a program. And so if their parents are there, that's a totally separate thing, what they're talking about. But as long as the daycare facility, the kids who are signed up, even if it's just for 1 day a week, something like that, or if they're there 1 day a week, as long as she keeps it to under 6, even though it's no longer a family daycare home, technically the licensing does change more than 6.
Okay, so that's the number 6.
But the way I think
Under 6.
it's
Fine.
under 6, but I think the technicality here, and I don't want, is that these are really going to be two separate operations. Are there going to be two separate businesses?
So it falls under Tranquil Inspirations.
Okay.
So the bank account will be as a nonprofit, Tranquil Inspirations.
Okay.
And so, money rendered will go into that account.
Yeah, we're not so concerned with that. Just more like, just want to make sure that everything's on board with, the things that Dimitri is asking
And-
about.
I guess my question is, so the D1 variance is only for the outdoor learning center?
It's for everything.
But
for
even if we said no tonight, she can continue the daycare for the 5 children?
Yes,
If we say no?
yes.
So really, in my opinion, this is about the outdoor learning center and maybe the storage unit on the second floor?
It's about, so Jason, one way to look at it is that if the family daycare home is permitted in all residential zones in the state, single-family dwellings in the state of New Jersey. But if we're here tonight because she's looking to expand to have this more formalized outdoor learning center. If you're doing that plus the family daycare, you now have 2 uses on the property. So it's more like, it's not just like you're replacing one for the other, it's like looking at the combination of all of it. And then in terms of the nonprofit, I think that's very, we'll let them put testimony on. It does not interfere with the same hours at all. It seems, it's obviously a good cause, but we'll let them put that testimony on. But I appreciate, just radical honesty saying that that's also going on there. Because, they're saying this doesn't happen on weekends, et cetera. So I think we'll let them put the testimony on, but I agree, I think that it's important to just kind of wrap your head around what's permitted here and what's being proposed.
Okay,
And
thank
then,
you.
and then the Forster closet, I think that's what it's called. How does that come into this mix?
That's what I was that's what I was saying, the upstairs sort of use. That's technically not permitted. It's one of those
Currently, it's not permitted.
No, it's not permitted. It's one of those things where if you were doing that at your house, people might not notice. But if you're coming here for a use variance and you get approved or you don't get approved, and people still see people coming over on weekends, so I think it's very good that it's part of this application because it can be something for the board to consider.
Right.
But she hasn't even put the testimony on for that
Yeah, I know,
yet,
we didn't
so-
talk about that yet, but
Yeah.
I'm just curious because, again, the neighbors are probably going to be concerned about traffic and cars and when people are coming and going and all that kind of
Yep,
thing.
so their operation statement had limited hours, how that's all gonna operate, and we'll let Jill testify to that too.
Okay. Sorry to go off a little bit.
All right, so let's continue with the operational side of things. Sounds like they want to talk about a little bit of the parking. We'll get into the technical side, and we'll talk about the engineering, but as it relates to coming and going, and then this additional use on the second floor on the weekends. So you noted earlier you have 5 students on the interior, right? And then you'll have scheduled classes in the exterior from the property. The students that are dropped off on site, those are occurring early, 8 a.m., between 8 a.m. and 9:30, depending on when a parent drops them off, correct?
Correct.
And then they get picked up around 4 or 4:30.
Earlier.
Or
Three-
earlier,
3:30,
depending,
4.
yeah, okay. And then as it relates to the outdoor, when are you anticipating those classes to occur? And then are you going to anticipate any overlaps in those drop-off, pickup times?
Sure. So the classes, I was thinking I could do AM class, an early afternoon class, and then maybe an evening class. So the thought was maybe there would be 3 classes a day. Again, looking at the seasons, because in the winter months, there just might be an AM and a afternoon, but in the summer, I would be happy to offer those 3 classes and have more children playing outside and just being exposed to different learning experiences.
And so as it relates to those three timeframes that you're talking about, morning, afternoon, and then early evening, how many individuals are going to be coming in at that time, and are you anticipating any carryover between the drop-off and pickup from the daycare?
We would schedule it in such a way that it wouldn't interfere with the drop-off in the morning. So a class could start maybe at 10 o'clock once all parents have dropped off, and then the children are there for about 45 minutes, and then maybe another class right after lunch. So again, it's not going to interfere with that pickup time. And then one after everybody's been picked up, again, depending on the daylight hours. So it would be scheduled in such a way that it wouldn't interfere with cars coming and going, and it wouldn't be too, overwhelming in terms of traffic.
So in the wintertime, when it's cold out, are you still going to be doing these outdoor classes, like in January, February?
Yes. That,
Okay.
the goal is to get children outside as much as possible. It wouldn't be dark out when the classes occur, but if it's cold out, there will be classes, yes.
So you'll have to adjust the hours earlier in the afternoon in the wintertime.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Just one quick question as it relates to the total number of parking stalls proposed. You said 10 students, right? So it's probably about 10 cars. So if you consider really the daycare not overlapping or the classes not overlapping with each other, you'd have probably 10 cars. On a site at one time, you have 14 spaces. So we have more spaces than the cars.
For the daycare that also need to park their car?
Yes, so they were figured into the amount of parking spaces
So-
needed.
How many employees are there?
So with the toddlers, our daycare, we have about 2 teachers on site, and then running the program, it would be 1 or 2 teachers. So that allows for 4 staff members and then 10 parking spots.
4 staff. Okay.
At most, yes.
And that's for the upstairs too?
So the upstairs, we would be able to coordinate things so that it wouldn't really interfere with the other programs as well. A lot of times when it comes to the Village Foster Closet, the woman who runs the nonprofit, she's there during the day by herself, receiving donations, things like that. She'll bring over donations. But when she's meeting with families, it's typically on a weekend, right? Because they're scheduling, there might be children in school, things like that, and they're shopping to get clothing that they need, and the children are picking that out. So she's typically there when the children are out of school, the older children who need it. There are younger children also who need those services, but she does schedule accordingly. We communicate a lot about scheduling.
I think our question that we're asking is trying to figure out how many people are going to be there, because it affects the cars and the parking, which will be testimony later on. So is that 4 or 5 people could be on at a time, and including yourself if you're there?
With the Village Foster Closet?
Yeah, the whole the whole property.
Be more
The whole
people are
kazoo.
jumping for
Right.
donations.
I truly believe that 14 spaces is ample spaces
No,
for the
that's not
activity.
question. How many staff people, including yourself, could be there at a particular time during the day?
So right now, if I'm there, right, that adds another car. However, I actually don't park on site a lot because I live within walking distance to the property, so my car is rarely there, to answer that question. The woman who runs Village Foster Closet, her car may be there, it's not there every single day. And a lot of times, actually, if she's doing work, meaning bringing the clothes, she does it after hours. She understands that there's children there and she doesn't want to interrupt the activities happening. So I will often speak with her in the evening. She'll be there by herself, bringing certain donations. So, we know that when the children are in the house, they may be napping, so we don't want people coming and going inside the house. So to answer that question, the largest number of staff is typically 2 cars.
2 cars.
Yes.
So, because I'm looking at this and it's like, so I there's a maximum there, 2 cars sounds, look, there's 14 spaces proposed on the site and there's nowhere else to go. So it's kind of like, okay, I think that the people would be harmed the most by that would be, people trying to go to one of the classes during the day. And I don't think that you would want to do that. People are like, where do I go? I'm confused, blah, blah. But I think that 14, there's, it's like, the 14 sounds appropriate, but it sounds like we're teetering towards the top, and I think the board's just looking for, confirmation that, that there won't be more than 4 staff cars on the site at a time. There will be a maximum of 10, 10 students is, I think in your operations, did you say, or maybe you didn't give a number. I'm not sure if I had 8 or something. I thought 8, but maybe you did not give a maximum number for the outdoor learning students. But I think that's just really the concern, making sure that everyone knows where they're going. There's a place for everybody. They're not going in and out of the horseshoe driveway, etc. Oh yes, okay. So yes, the operations statement did say 8 students per session, and I have to say when I read that is like there's definitely enough room. So
So 8 students, but they're not all at the same time. She's dividing that up.
No. The
Yeah,
outdoor.
that's what I want. That's what I'm talking about.
The outdoor learning could be 8 students at a time.
At a time?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. I thought that would be 8 per the day.
No, it's eight at a time.
It would be each session.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
but I don't think that's an issue, though.
Well, that's 8 cars.
Right.
At a minimum, like
Yeah.
if parents, sometimes divide up afterwards, that is my.
But if she keeps it, and she's very tight with her schedule,
Yeah, right.
and,
Right, and
keeps,
it's only 3
keeps
times a
it so
day.
that the school kids for the indoor and the lady upstairs and everybody's coming at different times, it might be enough, but it seems like you're at the border where there'll be times where there'll be a car trying to find a place to park.
Well,
But we'll talk about that when we do
Yeah.
engineering.
I guess just for clarity, it's like the daycare, the 5 children who are there during the day, their parents, they baby walk them in the building, that's it.
They
They're
leave.
out.
Right, they're gone.
They come in 8:39, then they're gone. So, except for the 2 cars associated with the employees. Then the 8 students, 8 cars, et cetera, that would be staggered during the day.
Right, 10 o'clock in the morning, there's nobody there but the other employees.
Exactly.
But
And
then,
then
just to be
and then
clear,
she's
it's
also
2 more staff for the outdoors, though, right? So it's 2 inside, 2 staff inside, and 2 staff outside.
So then you're at 12. And then I think the testimony indicated that these classes would not be back to back. So it's not like 10 to 10:45, 10:50 to 11:45, stuff like that. It would be spaced. So.
And
Oh,
it's not 10, so at one point, and I might have may have misspoken, but you had said 10 at one point, but the cap is 8 students outdoors?
I think there was a range of students presented in the application, or up to, I should say. When you're offering a class, sometimes you only get 5 students, sometimes
Okay.
you'll get 6 students.
No.
So it
But
it
your
is
cap
going
would be
to-
10.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying we went off the operation statement, which states the outdoor activity sessions are limited to 8 students per session.
Okay.
That's what it says here, yeah,
Yes.
45 minutes
So
long.
are we approving a number, or?
You can, yes.
Yeah, that has to be on here.
Yes, because you're approving the scope of
A
the use
maximum number of
variance.
students for outdoor learning? Because the 5 inside is already done. That's done. We're not
That's
approving.
part of it.
Yep,
Th-
yep.
No, that
No, we're
can
starting
be,
over.
you're kind of starting over, yes.
Okay.
That's why
Yeah.
we're asking all these questions, Jill, because we want to understand the scope, because they're going to be in the resolution.
So I will share that many staff members do not park in that lot. There is a lot next to us, and there is a dentist next door, and that the dental office will often bring the employees that work there, bring their children next door to the daycare center. So we have a very nice working relationship, and a lot of times the staff will just park in that lot next door. So in terms of concerns over parking, individuals coming for these programs would be able to park in that lot, and staff could park in the lot next door. They're right next to each other. So, that is something that, sometimes we do. Sometimes the staff is parking there, because currently we do not have a parking lot. We have a couple parking spaces because it's a residential lot. So we do utilize the parking lot next door so that there aren't a lot of cars on that space right now. So-
I would suggest, I don't think we need to look at like an easement, but would you think that would that property owner be willing to write a letter?
Well, I think you have to do it by way of an easement, if you have that.
I think
If
for
the board
something like,
wants it.
yeah, I mean, I've seen letters for cases like this.
Yeah, but you know
like
what, I don't like that
overflow.
idea. Because what if the dentist leaves tomorrow, and there's somebody else there, a lawyer, and he goes, I don't want all these people parking in my
Well,
lot.
So-
then they're no longer in compliance with their resolution.
Yeah, and that
I
causes
have
other
2
issues
leases
for
in
you.
that building.
I think
So
that-
I lease 2 spaces in that building as well,
Okay.
currently. So my lease stipulates the parking there. So I am able to utilize those parking
Yeah,
spaces.
but what if something changes and you don't lease that in that building, then you'll be delinquent in parking.
Yes, I mean,
So
currently,
we're only
yes,
thinking
yes,
of this
of
for you
course.
in the future, because then you're gonna be back here spending a whole ton of money to come back to tell us, I need 2 more parking spaces or 4 more parking spaces. So
Yes.
this is the time to get that out of the way, whether they're just gravel spaces that you could expand to, or whether they're actually put in now. We
Right.
have to decide that, if you remember when you were on the board.
Yes, yes. And I mean, the goal is to
So
keep
it's not a negative, it's a positive for you. So if we approve, let's say 16, but you only want to put in 12, that's feasible, absolutely, right?
Well, then we're talking about impervious
No, I'm
coverage,
saying
right?
maximum 16, but she could put in 12 if she wanted to, or 14, and then expand.
But then
We
are
do
we,
that
are we
all the
getting into
time.
the issue of the impervious coverage where
well, we'd have to do the calculations on the impervious coverage for more.
No, if you're approved for 16, you have to build 16 unless you agreed to do it as like a banked situation.
Bank
And
situation,
yeah,
that's
but
okay.
you know, Dimitri, I think we're getting a little like that's what you usually do for like big office buildings or something like that when people don't really know what's going to be, you know, how many people are going to be there, how many people are going to park. And I agree with you, you know, that anything could change at any moment, you know, with the property next door. But this is like a very much more controlled situation. You know, as the operator, she has control over how many children are signed up for each class. She has control over, you know, how her employees arrive at the site.
I agree with everything you're saying. I'm just trying to think out for
Yes.
her, because if for some reason she needs more parking spaces, she's gonna be back here spending a lot of money just for more parking spaces. So we'll get to that when the engineer talks, but I think we should, you know, think about that, is what is the max that you really will think you need, so that you don't undercut yourself in the future. That's all I'm saying.
Could I just get a clarification? Is anybody living in that daycare now as a residence? And in the future, will somebody be living in that residence?
I purchased the property really wanting to just share it, to educate the next generation of children. So that was really the sole intent of purchasing the land, to create many
So
different.
you live someplace else at this time?
I live pretty much across the street. I'm
Okay.
behind the houses across the street, yes. I can walk to my house. But no one is currently residing in that house.
And no one will, under your new proposal?
No.
So is that a condition? Special condition?
Well, and we're passing a variance that goes from residential to commercial. So there couldn't be residential at this point, right? Kate, am I correct with that?
Residential zone.
Correct.
It's in a residential zone.
Kate, the variance again that we're being put in front of us is to change this from a residential zone to a commercial zone.
Not changing the zone. You're granting a use variance.
Okay.
But the use variance does not mean that someone can just live in the house too, because that would be another use on the property.
Okay, so the
You're-
use is
you're-
only commercial.
The use will be not just commercial. The use will be whatever you approve.
So
So if she was here and she said, I want a staff apartment too, you could have that as part of this, but it's the whole. It's not like, you know, picking and choosing individual uses. So
Okay.
you can't just say you're gonna use residential too, because it would be like an expansion of a non-conforming use,
Okay.
basically.
So for my resolution, if we get there, there's never gonna be residents in that property if you get approved tonight for your three uses.
That's correct.
Okay. Did we, Dante, again for the resolution, have you spoken to the dentist? Is it possible to get an easement if the board requires that, or you think that's not possible, or is any for parking, two or so many spaces?
I don't think we should even consider that.
Okay.
Because that, you know what, that's
Just wanna
something
make
that
sure.
can change at any time.
Well,
If there's a new owner there.
If it's an easement, it can't, but I think that's a little, I
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
a
a
lot
little
of,
over the
you're
top.
putting a lot of
Yeah.
work on her to put
I
things like that.
agree with that.
That's
I
not
agree with that.
necessary.
Mhm.
Go ahead, I'm sorry, we're all over the
No, yeah,
place.
it's okay. So then the last portion was discussing the Village Foster Closet, which is on the second floor. I know we kind of already started touching on the operation, so can you just describe to the board what that exactly is, and then how it's going to facilitate, how it's going to work with the other uses?
Sure. So I was approached a couple of years ago, knowing that the house is pretty empty. Could the upstairs be used for storage for foster families? And I just thought it was a great idea. You know, the whole idea is to serve many families. You know, we actually have in our current daycare a child who is being fostered who receives services. So I just felt that the woman who asked me this question is a lovely person, and in any way I could help her, I was happy to do so. And she kind of started with one room, then added another room, and then, you know, she has another room because she receives a lot of donations and she can help many families that way. So that's kind of what happened. It was just it's still small, but she's able to serve more families now, storing more clothing. And she has it organized nicely, so there's different clothing sizes. So when families take on a new child, they have a place to go and get what they need.
And how
Yeah.
do those families come to the site? Is it via appointment only?
Yes. So yes, the woman is contacted sometimes, you know, through different agencies, and she will make that appointment. You know, she is not going to make an appointment in the evening because she's not always certain of who these families are. So she'll schedule something during daytime, and often it is during the weekends. So, she's there either with scheduled appointments, or she's there because she's bringing in some of the donations that she received and she's sorting them and organizing them.
Okay, so it's not just on weekends, it could be during the week, is what you're saying? Because you're saying oftentimes it's on weekends, which is a little different than it is only on weekends.
Her preference is to schedule on the weekend, but as she's working with certain families, if there's a need, she'll create an appointment with them, and we'll do it during the hours when we're not operating the daycare.
So what you're saying?
Which would be evening.
It would be early afternoon, so like after school hours, maybe like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, right? So if the children have left the daycare, because sometimes everyone's gone by 3 o'clock. So it's often still daylight out, right? But it could be 5 o'clock at night, that's correct.
Or even later, somebody's working during the day and they say, I can get there at 7, I'm working until 6. She would be there. She would say, okay, your appointment's at 7. 2 cars in the parking lot, one for her and one for the person.
Yes.
But
Her-
the maximum time that it could be, because it does say here 8 to 4, could it be later?
At times it could be later, I suppose, yes. I know she prefers to do certain hours. Are there some situations where people are making appointments a little bit later? It has happened, but I know her preference is between those hours.
So Joe, it's important because we don't want to be getting a phone call on a Sunday or whatever day and saying, hey, I thought we approved 4 o'clock. There's cars there at 8 o'clock at night. What's that all about? And we don't want to deal with that. So if we come up with the right time that you think it might be, Monday through Sunday or different hours on Saturday and Sunday, we'll put that on the resolution, and that'll be the hours of operation,
Okay, that would work.
maximum.
Right, yeah,
Yes.
I'm not so much, concerned's not the right word, but like, it's not so much, this woman organizing her stuff during the day. When you say brings donations, that's just her. She has
No, I
loads-
get it.
But I'm just saying, that's just her, she's just up there doing her thing. It's more, and it's, again, this is just about how many different things are going on the site at any given time. It's not, just really that. That's, I think, what the board just wants to look at. So again, volunteers Saturday, Sunday. There's no one else on the site on Saturdays and Sundays when the families would come. So I think obviously that makes logical sense. I know that that's not always the best way to serve your population when you're working as a nonprofit. So I understand the need for some flexibility. If it would be just some way to limit, not even a limit, just guidelines, I think would be the best
Well,
way.
my concern, the follow-up is lighting, because there's no mention regarding lighting.
Yeah,
because
we didn't even
everything
get up
was
to that yet.
said that it was going to be during daylight hours, and there would
Yeah.
be natural light.
Right.
And I understand that people are gonna wanna come at night. To me, it makes more sense to make a night appointment, because people are probably working during
Right.
the day.
Right, and when you're dealing with what's there now, which is a typical residential driveway,
That's my
you're
concern.
lit
Exactly.
by the residential lighting. But when you build out to the side a more formalized driveway, understood? Yeah, I didn't
That
think
was
of
my
that. Yeah,
concern, is
thanks,
trying
Lori.
to figure out
And
size.
So-
that's my concern, is there's people out there that we may hear from that might want to know where they're going to be cars going in and out of this 7 days a week, all hours of the night,
Well,
from the morning
and-
till night. And that's what, as a board member, that's what I'm thinking, I'm anticipating that they're going to be saying, because
Can I
that's
d-
what I would say if I was
Can I
here.
just ask one quick question? Sorry, just to make sure we have the scope. How many families a week does she typically serve?
She's here. We can ask her.
Oh, okay, great. I wasn't sure. Okay.
But to answer that
I-
question, there's the other question. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to just make sure,
Yeah.
because I think we get fixated because there's so many details going around, and like it's not like she has like 100 people coming in and out every week. It's much.
We don't
it's
know.
much. Well, but I assume that it's not. It's much smaller in scope,
It-
so we
it
just want
is-
to get that on the record.
It is, and having spoken with her on this many times, if she's coming at 6 o'clock at night, it's because it's daylight still. In the winter, if she needs something, if a family needs something, she'll come and get it herself, because she really doesn't want to be there when it's dark out. So she may come get it, bring it to her house, and then work with families there or agencies there. So at night, she's really not bringing people there. She may go and pick up materials. But she is here if you'd like to speak
Yeah,
with her.
I'm just saying that would be part of any resolution, so I'm trying to watch your words,
Okay.
because I don't want you to say something and it's in a resolution, and all of a sudden now we're breaking the resolution for very good reason, and I'm not saying it's not a good reason.
No, of course
But
not.
I'm concerned about, like, you saying, well, that's okay, she'll do it from her house, and if it doesn't happen, somebody's gonna call.
Yep.
And so that's why I'm saying, I'm just concerned about some of your words, I think in good faith, but what's happening is I'm hearing like kind of two things, so I'm trying to figure out like what the resolution in the future could say.
Right.
I mean, could we limit it to daylight hours? So those hours may vary based on daylight.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, that
Absolutely.
would solve the lighting problem, but
Yep.
that wasn't what you just said before, that's why I wanted to know, like, what is realistic.
So maybe it might be a good idea, I don't know how the rest of the board feels, that since this woman is here, that she should testify and put on the record all these things that you're saying for her, because it would be better, we would hear it right from firsthand. If that's, when, not right now,
Okay.
Right.
when you're done, as another witness, because when we're done asking questions and you're done presentation, then I open it up to the public. So, go ahead, I'm sorry.
With that, the only thing left to discuss is just how the operation of the outside area would work and the students and timing and that sort of thing. So scheduling from the daycare, the outdoor activities, and how many students you're anticipating in that area throughout the day, just so the board understands and we can have a clear number in the resolution.
Sure. So during the summer hours, ideally, we would love to have 3 classes. If there were 8 students at each class, right, that's 24 students, and then the 5, so you're talking 29 students. I would love to kind of reach more than 8 children, so, if I could go up to that 10, I would love it, and then I'm reaching 35 children. So that is the number of children that I would really love to be able to serve.
So Joe, is it better to have more kids in a class or more classes, like 4 classes instead of 3 classes with less kids? Accomplish
With the
same thing.
daycare operations, I think it would be more challenging because people would be coming and dropping off, and I think it's easier to schedule times with just 3 classes.
So you'd rather have 3 classes with 10 max?
I mean, I'm open. I could-
No, if this is what you're proposing, we're gonna
Right.
discuss it, and we're gonna hear feedback from out there too, perhaps. And we'll we'll come to some joint conclusion of what's right, and Marty will put it on the resolution, and that'll be it.
I think it would be less busy, right? If we had 4 classes coming and going, there'd probably be more traffic coming and going, right, during different times.
So 3 classes proposed, and then up to 10 students in the exterior, correct?
I don't, honestly, my goal is to serve as many children as possible. So I don't want to say no to 4. If 4 is an option, I'm open to it. But if we're talking about traffic, I just always want to be mindful. So it would have to be very careful planning, which I would be of course, we would have a nice schedule. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't want to say no to 4 classes. If that's an option, then I'm very happy to do that.
Joe, keep in mind, it's what you want, and we're gonna decide whether it's gonna happen or not. But like, for example, I'm just thinking in the summertime, you have more daylight.
Right.
So why not in the summertime offer 4 classes? But in the wintertime, it gets dark 4, 4:30, 5. Maybe you might only be able to do 3 max, maybe even 2, who knows? Because you haven't really started this, so you don't know exactly how it's all gonna run.
Right.
And-
That sounds ideal.
And whatever we put on this resolution is gonna stay there, and then if you have to change it, then you're gonna be back with us. So we're all trying to help you put this together, and then we'll get feedback from the audience and hear what they have to say, and make something out of this.
Okay, so 4 classes max would be wonderful. And again, depending on the hours, it could be 3 at different times during the year.
Yeah,
Okay?
and it sounds like the crux, this is also for Jill, is that, she doesn't want these people arriving the same time as pick up and drop off.
Right.
It doesn't work for the site. So, I think there's an incentive to schedule around that, even if, we could be in the resolution, there shall not be overlap with pick up drop off times, but even so, I think that's, you don't want that, because it doesn't really work. Yeah.
Right.
I think there's
Board
still,
members, go ahead.
I just think there's still a lot of open questions. I think that you may have to go back and think about exactly what you see as the vision for this community, daycare learning center. I'm not sure if tonight all the answers are going to be made.
Maybe, we'll see.
I mean, I definitely want to hear from the public and what the
Yeah.
public has to share. But I don't know if we're going to be able to vote tonight.
Well, let's not worry
Yeah,
about that
yeah.
yet, Jason. We'll keep going till at
Can I
least
just
9
a lot
o'clock.
more
ask
witnesses.
about, like,
Yeah, yeah.
sounds and what these classes are outside, because it is like a residential neighborhood. So what are we talking about sound-wise? What kind of classes exactly is it? I know you referred to a website, but I apologize, I didn't
No.
know about the website.
I mean, children playing outside are not quiet. And so another reason why it would be during the day. I'm not looking to tell any child to be quiet. I want them to have that experience. You know, as an educator, I'm reading so many things about the anxious generation. And I think it's because at a young age, they're not doing what they once did so naturally. So we really have to just encourage this approach to being outside, playing in the dirt, knowing where your food comes. We have a garden. I really want them to be part of that. And I want to hear them giggle. I want to hear them run around. It may not be quiet, but that's why I also don't want to do it during hours when everybody is home and resting. It will be daylight hours.
Yeah, also, sorry, I think that we want to hear the engineer's testimony about buffers and stuff like that, because there are a lot of natural buffers
I did
between this
see that
property
in
and
the-
others, because there's
on the
wetlands
map.
back there. Yes, so I think, that'll all be part of the
I was
buffers
just
and all of that,
concerned
yes.
with the suggestion of additional classes during the summer, that's when people are home more often. That was why I thought of the question of what is the sound like, what is people's, life gonna be like?
Yeah.
So at this point, we have nothing further to add as it relates to operations, unless the board has more questions for Jill. Not
I have one question, which is probably really not relevant based on what this board is deciding. I happen to have been in that house for EMS first aid call, probably the last owner. So I saw a lot of things that didn't look kid-friendly back then. Have you made modifications to the house for the kids to be in? I mean, it's not relevant here, but I'm just curious.
So inside the
Yeah,
home,
Yeah.
the kids do not go upstairs. So they're primarily in two areas. We have an area where they're playing and napping, and then we have another area that's next to the kitchen where we have the high chairs and they eat. There's an area for them to go to the bathroom if they're learning to potty train. But,
You
they're-
haven't renovated the house in any way, opened up, knocked walls down, did
No,
anything like that?
not in
The house
any
is
way.
exactly the way it was when you bought it?
It is.
Okay, yeah, because when you mentioned the upstairs, I remember that was a challenge going up those stairs.
And the children do
Okay.
not go upstairs.
Okay, you answered the question.
That could be a part of bringing the donations upstairs, when you're bringing many things up, but the children aren't upstairs.
Okay,
And one last question for you, just to confirm. I think I know the answer, but the outdoor learning center, the 10 groups of the 3 groups of 10, it would only be Monday through Friday, never on a Saturday or Sunday. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
The current model,
don't limit yourself, Jill.
don't. Right, to say never.
Well, again, because my understanding is what we passed tonight.
That's
is
right.
It's
It's gonna say Monday through
never
Friday.
Saturday or Sunday.
And then you're closed on Saturday and Sunday, and that's it.
Because the only thing I understood during the testimony was that the Village Foster Closet might be open on Saturdays and Sundays to have children coming to try on clothing.
In full transparency, I would love the foster children who are there on the weekends to also have the experience of being outside and being in the garden. So I would like to present that in a different way and, really work towards that. We're both nonprofits. She
Yeah.
has her nonprofit. This is a nonprofit. So I would like to create experiences for them on the weekends.
Yeah,
I
so
just feel like the application is turning into
Yeah.
something a little different.
I think you have to develop a fuller business plan of what your business, what your vision is.
I think there's two things at play here. One is that it's difficult when you're just starting, you haven't started yet, you don't want to limit yourself. However, that's not inherently how a use variance, unfortunately, especially when it's for a non-residential use in a residential zone, it's not always how we look at them. For example, I think, and again, when my letter, everything, that was just based on what was submitted. If they had said, if that operation statement had said there will be outdoor activity classes on weekends, I would have said, okay, that's, and by the way, I did look this up. It's if students are there for less than 2 hours and it teaches a specific skill, it's considered like a class and not a daycare. So that's the difference there between the state regulations. But so that's the kind of thing, I don't think that's abnormal to have on weekends, especially during limited hours.
No,
But that's
not at
not what,
all.
but that's not what was presented as the
Right,
application.
that's our point. I'm looking out for you, and I'm looking out for the people that are gonna be your neighbors there.
Right.
So we have a hat that's joint, and we want to find a happy medium for everybody. So we have to be upfront with everybody because, somebody will call and complain about something later on if it's not exactly what we're talking about tonight. And in a few minutes, when I open it up to the public, we'll see how they feel.
Right.
And, maybe they're in favor of you, maybe they're not in favor. We'll find out. And-
I want this to be clear. So my goal is not to charge classes on the weekends, if that's, the clarity in that. But being that this is a garden, I need a lot of help in the garden on the weekends in the summer. And so that's me being out there. That might be a family saying, I love this experience. Can I just join you on a weekend? So that's the goal, to really create a sense of community. Not charging for classes on the weekend, not looking to create that formal structure, but I am looking to be in the garden on the weekend. And if the foster children are there, I'd love for them to come in there and pick something. There's fresh food growing. So that's the vision, right? To have that garden touched every single day. The classes would be operational Monday through Friday, but on the weekends, I will be there. I will
We're gonna
be.
have to come up with some kind of hours when that happens, because
Okay.
I'm not complaining to you about whether it's paid or unpaid. That's irrelevant. What we're concerned is traffic and cars coming in and out of the property that may be affecting the other people that live around there, their quality of life.
Okay.
Because now it's a house, it's a residence. Now we're gonna change the use of it. So, why should we change it if everybody's unhappy with that and they're gonna say, what's going on here? This was a quiet neighborhood, now we got cars coming and going, and who approved that? The zoning board.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would be happy to say these are the gardening hours on the weekends that are not charged. It's just, we can work in the garden during set hours. And they would probably be earlier, right? Because it's very hot in the summer. So you get out there earlier in the morning and do what you can to maintain the garden.
Joe, we may ask you to come back, but I wanna try to, get the public to give their opinion so we could get some feedback from where they're thinking.
Maybe
Do
we're
we-
overthinking.
Yeah,
I'm just
maybe
concerned
we
on-
are.
But do we
Right.
want to hear the rest of
I-
the testimonies too, or
concerned on
just
notice.
those two more
This
witnesses?
is what the community
No,
had
no.
notice of,
The
was
public
the
has to answer
application.
Okay,
questions.
okay,
And if
okay.
we expand during the meeting, that's not really fair to people who didn't know we were gonna expand during the meeting.
I
And
think.
now it's a
yeah.
different thing a little bit.
I think from the just from a legal perspective, I think we're still, this is a D1 variance, a notice
Right.
for a D1 variance. We're still, that there's no issue there. The changes here, it's all things that happen on the record. Things always change during hearings. But yeah, I think maybe this isn't, the board, it and myself too, it gets we're so used to like micromanaging these things because it's like something's like a restaurant or something. It's much more cut and dry. But it's like, think about like another commercial site. We don't tell like a commercial, like a shopping center or something. Yeah, you might not be able to run your lawnmowers at certain times because of noise ordinances, but we don't say, if your store's closed at 7, you can't have a maintenance man there at 8. So I think, again, this is different 'cause it's in a residential zone, but I think, again, it's the holistic view of all of this, and I don't think it's realistic to say that the site's just gonna shut down on weekends. It still is something that has to be maintained. So I think that that's a fair point from the board to make too.
Okay. Any other questions from the board before I open it to the public? Okay, so public, here's how it works. I don't know where the mic is. Here's the mic. Can you check that this is working before, can you check this mic? It's on. So public, the way it's gonna work is, you'll raise your hand. I'll pick your guys, whoever it is, one at a time. Come up and ask questions of the applicant, who is also the owner. And that's questions, not comments. Hey, I don't like this. I think it's a great idea. It's the best thing for the neighborhood. That we're not looking for. We're looking for specific questions and hopefully nothing that we haven't already covered already. So maybe things that you're thinking of being a neighbor that we don't even know about. So those are the kind of questions that you'll be asking Jill. She'll answer your question. And then comments, yes, that's the part. Thank you, Marty. At the end of the whole application, when we're all done, we'll open it up to what's called comments. Then you're open to say whatever you want. Depending on how many comments, I could limit you anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes for your comments. and that's at the end. So remember, this is only questions of the applicant, and we will also do that for each professional that sits here. So today, first, it's going to be Jill, then it'll be whoever's next, and then the same thing. It may not all happen tonight, I don't know, but that's the process. Okay, so with that being said, who would like to say something or ask a question?
I'm sorry, it just stopped recording. I have to.
Wait, she's saying, hold on a minute, something happened with the recording.
Figures. Then it cut me off?
Get to do it again, Dimitri.
Well, I'm trying to teach my protege. What happened? It's off now?
Okay.
So what happened when it's off? We have to wait until the recording device is working again. It must be on the record, everything we talk about. So we don't have a stenographer, we have a recording. Yeah, if, we need at least 5 minutes or no, or more.
Please.
So if anybody needs to take a 5-minute break or a 10-minute break, this is the opportunity.
Oh, okay.
What, you got it?
Sorry, I just need a minute.
Restroom break. It's very complicated because the thing put me on here is
We're good. No, we use both. Yeah, but we use both. It's universal.
Okay,
We
we got
can
a record,
continue.
we got a recording device going again. Okay, so does anybody would like to come up and ask
I
a
guess
question?
just give everyone a chance to come in. They were outside.
Name and you say your name and your address when you come up. Nobody?
No, I think there's some people stepped outside.
Yeah, but anyone to see from here? Does anybody want to come up and speak? Raise your hand. Only one person out of everybody? Oh, wow. You got
Two,
it easy,
two.
Jill. Okay, come on up, miss. Is that mic at the right height for you? No.
You can take it off too. Just take it off.
You take it off.
My name is Samidhini Raghunandan.
Where did you get that? Can you spell it for,
My name is Samidhini Raghunandan. I can spell it for you.
spell it, please.
Samidheni. That's my first name. Last name is Raghunandan. Raghunandan. I live-
Okay.
yeah.
You're very soft-spoken, so you're going to have to keep that mic
Oh,
and
okay,
speak
I'm
a little
sorry.
louder.
Okay, I will try my best. Okay, we live on 25 Shank
Wait, I
Road.
didn't hear your address.
25 Shank Road,
Shank Road, okay.
25, right across.
Yep.
Okay. We moved into that house, we constructed that house. I'm an architect by profession myself. For the reason it is a calm and quiet residential area and a residential zone. So my concern definitely is once a zoning part of it changes, it cannot be reversed. So it being a purely residential area, residential zone, my concern is we don't want it to get into business zone. That is
But
definitely.
this is not a question you're
Okay,
asking.
so but
This
at the
is a
same, that
comment.
can happen if with all the things that's going on and what we have been observing.
Make it in the form of a question to Jill,
Okay.
not to us.
Okay. We already are having some problems in terms of the traffic. So with all the things that we heard, so it is only a concern. So how are we going to maintain a low traffic in that area in the first place? Because even during weekends, I'm sorry to say. say
So
that.
ask Jill, ask Jill the question.
So your question
Yeah.
is, can you repeat just the part? You're concerned with traffic.
How is she going
Yeah,
to control the traffic?
definitely, because, yeah, we are very close to the traffic light, first of all. And also we see a lot of people getting onto our property to make turns and the usual things.
Okay, so
That's one question, yeah, definitely.
I'm going to interrupt you. Traffic, there's going to be a professional engineer that will speak. They haven't spoken yet.
Okay.
And they will address traffic, because that's definitely on our list of questions to ask.
But I
Okay.
think your question to Jill, if I'm not mistaken, is you're asking her how is she going to control the traffic going in and out of her facility? Is that the question you're asking her?
Yeah, and also the parking part of it.
Okay, so ask Jill that question.
Yeah, how do you do that, Jill?
Jill, you need to be near the
Oh,
mic.
okay, sorry. There's been an engineer that has been consulted
Okay.
to design those parking spots. So,
Okay.
so there will be additional parking, and he'll speak to where those parking spots will go. And the traffic flow is such that you are entering one area and exiting another area. So in terms of that traffic flow, there will be a pattern that shouldn't present a challenge on Shank. Shank is a quiet road. So, I mean, I live right off of it as well. I'm not trying to bring more traffic in. But I do want to make sure if cars are coming, there's a way for them to enter and exit in a way that's not going to be disruptive.
Yeah, my concern also, because in the future, if you have the plans to expand that with the things that you were explaining.
We already talked
I know,
about that.
yeah, but the reason why I said that taking that parking space from the office building, we had our daughter, married in our home, in our backyard, and we had to take permission we took permission and from those owners of the business building in the corner, and also we notified the police.
Yeah, but this is not a question, all these things you're
Yeah,
telling
but
us.
I understand, but
It's not going to be
but
relevant
that
here.
parking lot is going to face our home directly, and we have these cars, and our
Excuse me.
ring goes on,
Miss.
on and on and on.
So
You can't,
So
it has to
So
be a
ask-
question.
Yeah,
Ask,
that is
ask
good.
Jill, how is she going to partner with this dental office to use their
Yeah,
parking
how do you
space?
do that? Because it is already a nuisance for us. And every time, even during the weekends, in the night, we see the lights, people who
Okay.
are parked there.
Wait,
So how do we solve
give her
this
a
problem?
chance. Excuse me, you got to give her a chance
Okay.
to answer, because I'm going to cut you off, because this is all not a question. These are
Okay.
all comments that should be at the end of the hearing.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You
Okay.
only have to ask a question, so ask that last question, and then that's it,
The
unless you have
parking,
more questions.
yeah. That's
Before
one
we-
thing.
Before we jump into that, what we provided was operational testimony. I think the questions with relation to parking is more relative to the engineer. So I mean, Jill could speak, but I think
Well,
maybe
we're-
hear the testimony from the engineer so we could talk about the site itself. And then there could be questions and answers that
I'm
way.
probably giving a little bit too much latitude, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to help her out.
I understand, but
I get it.
the question really can't be answered until we have testimony as it relates to the engineering.
All right. So, did you hear what the attorney said? When the engineer comes to speak, he's going to talk about all these things that you're asking.
Yeah.
Then you will have an opportunity to get back up and ask him a question.
But I do think it's a fair question about, just because she has a relationship with the dental office, to ask her what her vision is for the partnership with the dental office based on her relationship. I think that's a good question to ask.
So my goal is to maintain
I just wanted to-
that whole property as a garden, right? When I bought it from the previous owner, he had farmed it for generations, and I promised him that I would continue to do that. So I don't want to create a site where there's a lot of parking, there's massive traffic. That is never the intention. The intention is to take this piece of property and make sure we have farmland in this state. The only way we ensure we have farmland is if we're teaching our children at a young age the value of this. In terms of the weekend, though, it's myself or the owner of the village foster closet who are there. So if there's cars there, it's really just the two of us. So we really don't want to present this constant influx of cars. We want to keep the property with the green, the trees, the garden. That's the goal. And we worked with the engineer to really ensure that the majority of the property is not being touched. We want to keep it really the way it's looking. The way the house looks is the same. The way the lot is not going to change much, with the exception of a couple additional parking
But
spots.
because of the zoning thing that you were talking about, definitely if it is right now it is a purely residential area, residential zone. You cannot run any kind of business. So
Okay.
if you can do
All
that,
right.
and how
I'm
do
going to
I-
have to
Again, this
cut
is
you
not a
off now.
question.
Okay.
I think you're off in different areas and not
Okay.
asking
No,
questions.
because I don't want it to be a business zone. How do we prevent
It's
that?
not going to
That
be a
was a-
it's not going to be a business zone. I'm the planner for the
Okay.
board. I said this to the board at the beginning, it's a little tricky. This is a variance to run exactly what she's proposing. That's why we're going into the details. This does not rezone the property. No one can run any other business. She could sell us down the line, if this was approved, she could sell to someone running the exact same business. Otherwise, you'd have to come back to this board or take it back to residential use.
And
It
Kate,
does not change the zone.
in my understanding, Kate, the only thing that will really change dramatically from the vision, the view, the picturesque quality is a parking lot in the middle now. There'll be a parking lot.
Well, yes, I was just gonna say, Jason, we have not yet even seen the
We
site
haven't
plan.
even, we
so
haven't seen
let's-
anything. We don't know.
yes.
She's putting shrubbery and bushes and trees and all that, so
Mm-hmm.
we can't even say that. Okay. Anybody else have questions? No. Okay, close public portion on questions for you. Next witness, please.
So we're gonna have our engineer come up, Mr. French. You were previously sworn, but if you could just state your name for the record and provide your qualifications for the board.
Yes, Andrew French from French and Perello Associates. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from NJIT. I provided testimony in front of numerous boards throughout the state. This board a couple of years ago for site plan testimony.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, we're accepted. You're accepted.
You heard the
Thank you.
operational testimony. Let's touch on the site plan itself.
Yeah, you heard quite a bit of our concerns, so when the time comes to get that portion, you can address it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, for some reason, Irene, it's not.
It's not working.
Right in sleep mode.
Turning it on. There you go.
It's on.
And obviously, you're gonna have to blow up that picture because it's too tiny to see anything.
Yeah, so I do have another one.
So what do we have to mark here? Artie? Has this been submitted?
No, this was not submitted as part of the application, just
Okay,
a
so
presentation
A1?
exhibit.
So what, could you just describe what A1 would be?
Yeah, so A1 is an aerial exhibit. This is a near maps photography of the site and the surrounding property. This is dated March 21st, 2025. And this is a 50 scale view of the aerial exhibit. The one I had up prior that the chairman asked me to pull down was 100 scale. I'm gonna pull that back up to show some additional information, but we can start with this one.
Handouts of this too, or just this, yours?
Just this.
Okay, we'll have to leave that at the end for you.
I do have a board,
Oh, fine.
so.
I'll leave that for.
We'll just keep
Mark
that.
that board, if you can mark that board.
Is there a stand we could just bring it like in front here so we could?
Oh, yeah, I
do-
got an easel.
That'd be great, thank you.
I don't know which is better.
Well, just for us too, keep those on a video and then for us, just put it in front of us so we could see.
Is this one helping anybody? It's kind of like,
I can move this towards us.
yeah, one or the other.
John,
Just
can you
one
move
should
that
be.
thing? That's
Which
good. That TV
Just
screen.
tilt it towards us.
Tilted?
I don't know if I can do it. I don't know
Oh,
how
I
to
can,
move that.
here, I can.
Push it.
Yeah, you can. It's on a 360 switch.
Yeah, just push it.
Are you
Where?
going? Who's going?
Katie's
Katie's going.
I'm gonna mess that up if I try.
Yes, please, that would be great. Much easier for me, right? This is great. This is really good. Thank you.
For the board and then.
Yeah,
so
this
they're
is-
a little
this is
far
great.
away, but that
Tilt the
one.
other one more. Can the public see that one over there?
I think those things tilt.
Can you see everybody out there in the back in TV land?
Oh, they move like that?
Yeah. I got one in my
Sorry
house.
about that. I'll break when I do that.
Well, this is right here. I mean, this is great. Yeah.
No, we can't see the people out there. I don't know. I never had it put like that.
I like it.
Oh, I thought those are like bolted into the,
No, there's the arms.
Bend the screen so the screen hits the wall on the back.
I think the public could see that, right? Oh, excuse me. No.
You get to stand there, Don.
It's like falling back.
I think put that one side against
Push,
the wall.
put that one, the left side against the right side or whatever that side is.
Yeah, if against the,
Yeah.
Hey, it's stopping, it's stopping, yep, okay.
Hey,
Don't breathe.
I'm on charge,
Okay, go ahead.
So, Mr. French, please orient the board to the site and then describe what A1 is.
yes, so this aerial exhibit, the site of the subject property is outlined in yellow. And the purpose of this exhibit, I just wanted to walk through the surrounding properties as well as the existing conditions of the site. So the property is located at 24 Shank Road. It's approximately 200 feet west of the signalized intersection of Route 34 and Shank Road. The property is irregular shaped. It has frontage of 270 feet on Shank Road, and then the rear of the property is 105 feet. And the depth is about 635 feet. So it's irregular shaped lot. It's about 3 acres. The surrounding properties, if I'll start on the west side, where it says subject property on the west, that property to the west of us is a single-family residential dwelling. If you could see on the bottom left of the screen, that's where the structures are located on that property. The house, the residential structure, is about 300 feet away from our westerly property line. On the other exhibit I'm going to bring up, we'll be able to see the other property to the north, which is St. Meta's Coptic Church, and that's approximately 200 feet from our northern property line to the church itself. On the east side, where it says B2, that's the commercial property that's on our eastern property line. That fronts on 34. I know there's been conversations about the dentist's office and the other uses there and the shared parking. That's that additional commercial lot that's right there on Route 34. On the opposite of Shank Road, at the corner of the southern intersection quad, that's the Cassell Farms property that's along 34. As you go a little bit further to the west, directly across Shank Road frontage from our property, there's residential homes along there. The homes that are directly across the street are about 400 feet from Shank Road. The one property just to our west off of the corner is about 150 feet from our property. I'll blow up the other exhibit just to give some context of the structures around our property. Like I said, the other one is the 100 scale.
Can you describe on the property the structures in the rear and whatever that is? Is that the farm area that Joe was referring to?
Yeah, absolutely, Chairman. So the structure up closest to the street on Shank Road in the center of the property, that's the existing residential structure. As you work your way towards the north, in the center of the property, a little bit on the eastern side, that's the existing barn structure. It's about 3,200 square feet. Just south of that, there's a wooden shed. And then north of that space, you're correct, that's the area that's currently farmed and will remain farm activity, where there's some of the activity going on with the classes in the farming
How large is
agricultural.
that area?
Of the farming?
Yeah,
To get my scale.
approximately.
Is it a half an acre?
Yeah, probably about that, yes.
Okay.
I mean, the whole property's 3 acres, so you can see it's pretty good portion of the site.
Okay.
Also on this too, you can see where it says Shank Road, just to the right of that on our property, that's where the existing horseshoe driveway extends in from Shank Road, goes around the property and back out. So I'll show you on the site plan, we're looking to maintain that horseshoe driveway. We're widening it and making it one way for better circulation.
What's the surface of the driveway?
It's asphalt now. When we widen it, it's going to be mostly porous pavement. There'll be a small amount that is asphalt will remain.
Okay.
Did you have any other questions on this one, or can I show the?
Does anybody have questions on this? Nope. Okay. So this is useless now. You have another new board for us?
Yeah. Well, this is just the aerial exhibit. It's the same photograph except for at 100 scale, and
Yes.
Okay.
What was the other scale?
50 scale.
50.
Yeah, and the purpose of this, as I indicated before, now up on the northern side where it says R40B, that is where the St. Mina's Coptic Church is. That's about 200 feet from our northern property line. And if you look to the south of our property, so we have frontage on Shank Road. On the other side of Shank Road, you know, we have the Cassell Farms property that's along
Casola Farms. for
Cassell
the
Farms.
records.
Excuse me, sorry.
That's okay.
Is on the Route 34 side. To the left of that, you can see the two residential structures. They're set about 400 feet off of Shank Road. And then just to the left of that, there's some, you know, vegetation and existing trees there. Then there's another couple homes there. The one closest to Shank Road, on the left-hand side there from our southwestern corner is about 150 feet from our corner of our property. So I wanted to give some context about the surrounding uses here. You know, nobody's right up against us. You know, we have on the eastern sides the commercial property. We have Shank Road as our frontage, and you know the existing residential structures are on the other side of Shank Road. On the west side, there's a very large piece of property there, and the structures are 300 feet away from our property line.
Do you have any idea how big their property is? Because that's the closest property person to your applicant.
Yes.
Another resident, in other words. That's the closest resident to your property. Because the St. Mina's borders the rear of it.
What is to the left of St. Mina's too? Is that a farm?
Yeah, that's St. Mina's property. the
Okay.
land.
Yeah, right where that yellow northern arrow is, that's
Yes.
a detention basin, and then further up is their parking area.
Okay.
So I don't have off the top, if somebody had the plans, it probably has the tax map, but the property to the left, it looks about 3 acres. It's similar in size to ours, but it's triangle shaped.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like the stream corridor is at the rear, and that's probably the border between St. Mina's property and
Yeah, so that is Willow Brook.
Yeah.
It is a tributary that runs along, that is our northern property line, and it probably bisects the property to the west and St. Mina's as well.
Yeah.
When we pull up the site plan, I'll show you the environmental constraints on that. But again, too, I'm going to flip back to A1, which is the larger view. You know, this is from March, so it doesn't give the full context of the trees, but you know, there is a considerable amount of trees surrounding our property on both the commercial side on the east side as well as the west side. There's a good amount of trees that are buffering in there currently now.
Okay. You can move on to the site plan, I guess. Which we have open.
Gotcha. Parking.
That's the first thing I see.
Yes.
This was a submitted plan.
So, did we mark these home plans? We don't have to.
Since it was submitted, we don't have to mark them.
Yeah, so this is the site plan as part of the application documents that were submitted to the board. Just, again, to orientate the board, Shank Road is now on the left-hand side. You know, the commercial property is on the bottom of the page here. You can kind of see some of the parking areas in the two buildings there. On the right-hand side, the rear of to the right-hand side, that would be St. Mina's. And then on the top portion to the west is that single-family residential home we were talking about. It's about 3 acres. You know, on here too, just to elaborate a little bit more on the existing conditions, to the back of the property is Willow Brook. We, based on the NJDEP flood hazard area rules, we're able to approximate the floodplain of Willow Brook consistent with those rules. And when we've done that, it might be hard to see, but it's about 20 feet off the west side of that rear property line. There's a dashed blue line there. That is where the floodwaters would go. Off the back of the property, it does have a steeper grade that extends down, so the flood only comes up a little bit into the property. Then the blue portion is the riparian buffer associated with Willow Brook. So the DEP rules have a riparian buffer that extends out. We've approximated that in blue. Then in green, you'll see a little part on the eastern, northeastern portion of the site, which is wetlands. So we did have an expert from my office who's certified in wetlands delineation go out and take a look at the property. And the wetlands actually follow along the brook, and they would have a 50-foot buffer. Again, it would just be limited to the area in the rear of the site. So what we've done is we're doing no improvements, no site improvements, nothing in that back area in the environmental sensitive area. We've kept all the new site improvements up towards Shank Road and the front of the property because we're staying away from the environmental sensitive area. The area just north of the farm, it's kind of dashed out there, you'll see it. That's the farmland. That is going to remain and continue to be farmed. So the DEP rules allow you to do the farming in that area that's already been disturbed area. We're not taking any trees down there. We're not doing any other site improvements. So it's,
Put it in sleep mode.
oh, sorry about that. So the site improvements are limited. So as we talked about before, there's an existing horseshoe driveway that comes through the site. We're looking to widen that. It's going to be a one-way entrance. So as you come off Route 34 towards the property, just past the commercial site, that's where the entrance driveway would be. It would be 18-foot wide, paved driveway that would circulate around in a horseshoe and then exit on the west side of our property out on the Shank Road. 18-foot wide is per your ordinance for one-way driveway. We are proposing 14 parking spaces. Now they're situated on this plan west of the existing structure. We have a handicap spot plus 3 that are up towards the existing structure, and there will be new sidewalks that would lead from those parking spaces, one to the front of the building that has an existing ramp there for ADA compliance, and then the other sidewalks would lead to the side entrance, as well as one more sidewalk that would lead out towards the rear of the site. The parking spaces on the west side, there's 11 parking spaces there. Again, that's to facilitate the operational needs of the site. Just north of the existing structure, there's a fenced-in area for outdoor activities, which is existing, we're looking to keep. And then just further west of that is the existing septic disposal system, which has been recently upgraded as part of prior plans of the operation of the site.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
And probably we could wait till later on this, but have you read the interdepartmental review form?
Yes.
So there's some comments there from fire officials, and we could talk about them later as you go in your presentation if you want, or you can mention it now because they're suggesting 22 when you had told us 18. So do you have any
Yes.
comments on that?
Well, my comment is I should have tried to reach out to the fire official earlier than today to have a discussion with him, but I was not able to get a hold of him. Your ordinance requires 18 foot for one way. We feel that is adequate for access around the site. Again, we're trying to keep this as low intensity development, trying to minimize our impervious coverage. But again, if the fire official needs 22 feet, we will certainly comply with his request
Right.
if it's appropriate. So,
Well, obviously they put it in there, so they feel it's appropriate. But
Yep.
if you want, we can address all these comments on this sheet later that pertain to you.
well, no, I'm fine at doing them now as you're liking. I mean, again, I would agree to do the 22 feet unless there's a way that I can show him the circulation works and he agrees to let it be lesser. But I'm not going to oppose him.
The point that he's probably making is he knows his equipment and the radius that
Yes.
they need to turn. So he's making that statement based on the equipment that we have.
Yes, I can respect
So
that,
if
yes.
you talk to him and you tell him, the ordinance says, he says, well, my trucks can't turn, what if we have a fire there? How are we gonna get in the back?
Yeah, and I respect if he needs to get there fire, he has the right. I would just ask for his turning time plan and run an engineering if I can convince him, but if I can't, I can't.
You can work it out with Greg, put her on your list, Greg, to work out that fire official's comment for the 22 feet.
Yeah,
What about number 2, the markings and all of that?
absolutely, we'll do the markings on the pavement as well as the signage that he's requesting.
Okay. And then the traffic officers you can talk about later when you get up to that portion.
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly talk about them now.
No, I don't want to interrupt your presentation. You might address some of those
Well,
items.
I kind of lost my track here.
I do that very well.
So, well, all right, so just from a low intensity, the property is in a residential zone that allows 15% maximum impervious coverage. What we're proposing here with the wider driveway, the 14 parking spaces, the new concrete sidewalks, we have less than 14% impervious coverage. So we're not even above the threshold for the residential allowed here, you know, so we feel this is a low intensity from a site plan perspective use. We're staying in the impervious coverage of the residential district. From a grading and drainage perspective, the site drains from Shank Road, from that site down to the rear to Willowbrook. We are maintaining, even with the new driveways, we're looking to maintain the grading as the greatest extent possible, keeping the same patterns, the same grading. And stormwater management, because we're less than an acre of disturbance, less than a quarter acre of impervious coverage that we're increasing, stormwater management is not even required for what we're proposing, it's so minor. But the applicant, again, looking for the betterment, is proposing to do porous pavement, which is green infrastructure, stormwater management, to help mitigate any of the impervious coverage we're proposing here. So we feel that's a good add-on, even though it's not required for this low-intensity use. So from that perspective, a majority of the new pavement for the access drive and the parking spots would be porous pavement. The other thing I did want to point out on the parking, I know there's some conversations before. The purpose of setting up the 14 parking spaces, again, one, we're trying to minimize the impervious coverage, but for the child care, family care use, the intent would be to have 2 staff and 5 kids maximum. So that would only be 2 parking spots plus the drop-off scenario that occurs. If a parent comes, parks, drops off, brings their kid in, and that's if everybody's only bringing 1 kid at a time, that's 7 parking spots, we have 14. When the other activities on the site are intended to be scheduled off the peak of that drop-off scenario of the daycare. So if we have the 2 staff there, the outdoor learning would have 1 to 2 staff, which would mean 4 spots. Then we have 10 more parking spots for that class for a parent to bring their child. Now typically with these, there'd be maximum of 10 kids, so it could be less. But a lot of times too, the parents that are coming have siblings, so they're bringing 2 kids with 1 car. So really the maximum is 10 if every parent just brought their 1 kid. So that's the extra 10 parking spaces that we have to make the 14 from an operational standpoint work. The other aspect with the nonprofit for the Foster Village Closet, it was my understanding that that would be scheduled appointments for anybody coming to get the clothing, and that would occur on the Saturdays and Sundays during the day, as well as if they're bringing some clothes over just to acclimate it, the 1 staff there would do that off the peak of these other activities going on of when the classes occur, so that the parking works from an operation as long as it's scheduled properly. The last aspect of all that is, the intent is this to be daytime activity, so that we're not even proposing no site lighting on the property, so that all the activity is done during the day. So as Jill had expressed in the operation, that is the intent. You know, when I say that, that is the plan for the operation. When she mentioned about the weekend, you know, there was always maintenance happens on properties. You have people on the residential, they get their lawn cut, the landscapers come home. You know, on commercial properties, landscapers come, they take care of stuff. If there's a plumbing thing happens, they come and they take care of it. These things are just normal maintenance that happens on every property, and we don't include those part of our parking calculations. That's just normal operation and maintenance things that do occur. So we feel that the 14 parking spaces, trying to keep this a low intensity use, is a good balance. You know, so that's how we came up with the parking scenario in talks with Jill and the operation. The other aspect on the traffic part, I know there's been discussions about that as well. We went through and just looked at it, the maximum traffic on the site during the week. If they had the daycare operation, you have your 2 staff, you have 5 kids get dropped off in the morning, that's 7 trips. Then throughout the day, you have the 10 and the 2 occurring, and then again, the drop-off, pick-off at night with the daycare. That equates to about 50 trips of traffic coming in and out of the site. What DOT looks at from a major traffic impact is 500 trips in a day. So this is like 10% of what they even considered being a traffic generator. So from a operational use on traffic, this is low intensity. And as I said before, we're 200 feet west of Route 34 signalized intersection. You know, most of the traffic is going to come from that point and back out, but even that, the traffic that we're talking about, 50 trips a day, is very minimal over a course of an 8-hour day.
Did you do some stats to verify these numbers that you're telling us?
So the stats we had done was just simply adding up the trips on all these scenarios together to come up with that 50 trips. So it's not like, so for instance, the daycare has the 2 staff, they come in the morning, the 5 kids get dropped off, that's the 7 trips. Then as you continue going on, the 10 classes, the 10 students, the parents bring them, they wait during the class, the 2 staff are there, and then they leave. It's just cumulatively adding up those trips.
Are we finished with the parking lot? 'Cause
I mean,
I'd
not,
like to ask a question about that.
and also, it's not that it's that drastic of a change, but if it's 10 cars picking up and dropping off, that's 20 times. So 20 times 3 is 60, plus the 7 in the morning, and then picking up is 14. So we're talking more like 75, I would say. I know it's not a big difference, but am I correct in thinking 75 instead of 50?
Yeah, so when I was saying the 50, and what Jill was expressing, a lot of times when the parents are bringing the kids to the class, they're staying, watching the class and being there, so they're not dropping them off and leaving.
Okay.
But I guess the worst case scenario, you double the 50, you get 100.
Yeah.
That's still less than the 500 that they generate as a major trip generation for a site. So 100 trips throughout an 8-hour day, again, is not significant amount of traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Even for a residential street? I mean, when you say like 500 is a big number, no residential street has 500 people doing that trip.
That's a collector street.
So that's
Yeah.
why I'm asking you, is 100 like a lot for a residential street? Because that's the way into that neighborhood, Shank Road.
Right, so Shank Road is right there near 34, and the intent is the majority of the traffic is going to turn out of our site into Shank Road, go towards Route 34, and that being that little strip there that's next to the commercial property and Casola Farms property. You know, so it's only that small little section there that's going to see the traffic. Did I say that wrong again?
No, you said it perfect. I'm sure if they're watching, they'll be happy that you pronounced it correctly.
All right, yes. So,
Okay.
again, just from a traffic standpoint, this is low intensity, you know, traffic. This keeps falling asleep on me, sorry about that.
Okay, so I have a comment that's a comment really and could be a suggestion for 2 points. The parking area that's on the other side of the driveway. Again, I understand what the hours of operation are. You mentioned it and we heard that. But I personally rather not see cars facing the other person's property. If I was a resident there, I wouldn't want to see a row of cars there. Because this is, remember, we're trying to change the use here. We want to not affect the neighbors. So is there any reason why that parking couldn't be on the other side? And the other reason is that if little kids, again, and as a grandfather, I deal with this every morning. When I'm bringing my granddaughter, I have to walk across the driveway part to bring her to the school. And I'm always telling, she always grabs my hand and runs a little bit. And I have to chase her before a car coming into park, because a parent is in a rush to get there, is coming in. So to me, I don't like seeing, from my own personal experience with my granddaughter and with experience with other people property, if I was that person, I wouldn't want to see a row of cars lined up there, and possibly lights, depending on how late they were in the wintertime, that might be shining on my privacy of my home, and it changed the whole lifestyle I have. So if it's possible, I know you're cutting into that area, you can deviate the driveway a little bit and add some more parking next to the handicap or even in the back area, wherever. There's a lot of other spots where you can put it where the lights, and it'll be safer for the kids.
Yeah, to Dimitri's point, there's a.
Well, let him answer my question.
Yeah, so one, again, going back to the daytime activity, there should be no headlights that are projecting on
Right, but
somebody's
it gets close
property.
to pickup time.
So-
And it may be other people coming in there, picking up for the other activities, the upstairs situation. You know, that's what I'm talking about. It's that you can't guarantee there's not gonna be cars going there.
Yeah,
after
nothing is
when it gets
guaranteed,
night.
yes, that is
Well,
correct.
also
So-
inclement weather, if it's raining,
Right.
people have their headlights on.
Right.
Even in the afternoon, if it's dark, people have their headlights on.
Remember, this is
Yeah,
a
but-
residential zone, people live, and
Yeah.
like that woman said, she doesn't wanna make this change her lifestyle. So can that parking be situated where it's on the other end of the street?
So the other end of the property, that's where the existing barn is situated, and there was some trees and stuff over there. So if that's where you're talking about, we'd have
There
to.
or on where the handicap spots are,
Yeah.
opposite the side of the driveway, if you continue all the way down to where those 3 arrows and that pavement walkway is, you might be able to put them there.
We can put a few of them there, where the concrete sidewalk leads from the building perpendicular out towards the barn. Just to the south of that, that's the outdoor
I see
activity
that.
area. So we
Right.
could put a few along where the handicap spots are to
And
minimize
what about the front, towards the front, where the word says ADA parking signage in that space?
Yeah, we certainly could add additional
cost-
parking in that direction.
The cost would be the same, because you're adding them either
Yeah, but
way,
then
so
that's
it's a matter of what side you're gonna put
But
them
then,
on.
Yeah,
but then
so-
you're not really hiding the parking lot
Right.
as much by going that close to Shank. Like, I think originally I was thinking over here with the barn.
Well, then it's the same thing with the kids crossing the driveway. I'm
Yeah.
trying to keep the kids on
Right,
that
so that
side
was
of the driveway.
our thought process. We could add a few more where the handicap are along there. We couldn't get them all, but we didn't want to go too close to Shank Road because, again, we're trying to, minimize the impact.
Okay,
So-
how about, Marty just gave me an idea.
Okay,
The ones on, towards the barn could be for employees only, so there's no kids involved. So the drop-off and the parking where the kids could be in that space that we talked about.
okay, we can
So
certainly
you
look
said
at that,
You
yes.
said 2 to 4 employees, so if 4 spots are down there, they all park down that end, and then the parents could have a spot where they would walk right out of the car, right down the sidewalk and into the building, not crossing a driveway, not affecting the neighbors in any way. I think that would be a positive thing for the neighbors.
Okay, and you're okay if on the side where the barn is, if a couple of I'm gonna have to remove trees to put them in there?
No, the tree line, I see where the tree line canopy is, and there's still room to put the spots after
So it's
the
directly behind the house. It's directly behind
almost
the proposed.
directly behind the barn.
Yeah.
I don't see any kind of walkway or anything there that you're gonna have to rip up. It's just probably grass there, I'm assuming.
So
right?
definitely near the handicap spots along that side, absolutely.
Where the
Those-
wood shed is, in that area, from the wood shed to the
Yeah.
tree line.
Yeah, so the wood shed and then those parking is gonna create
In that vicinity.
Right,
You
right.
gotta lay it out.
okay,
If you're only gonna put 4 spots, enough for the employees.
okay. Well, if I have to take a tree down, I'll plant another tree
No,
somewhere else.
we were trying not to avoid that.
I
the
know, that's what I
idea.
was trying to do, but I'm trying to create the circulation where the barn and the shed are. If I put the spots there, it gets very constrained in that space.
Well,
So-
if you, I'm just trying to avoid the lights facing the neighbors. So
I
maybe
appreciate that,
where your
yes.
existing parking ends, you go a little further down, that's kind of on an angle facing towards the back. That may be okay for employees. Remember, employees.
Right,
no
right. So,
kids.
yeah, if I can balance off and take the majority, except for 4, on the side that the 10 or 11 now, that would be,
I'm sure the applicant would agree with the safety of the kids.
right, right. No, absolutely.
And
So-
affecting the neighbors.
Right.
so.
I like that approach if we could do that and
Yep.
keep the parking
I
similar
don't
to
have
where
a
it
problem with
is.
that.
but-
If any board member has any other suggestions, Jason?
No, I agree, yeah. If you extend the handicap zone, then you have the number 3, then you keep the parking lots going all the way to the sidewalk, you'll get your maybe 11 spots there. And then if you go across the street to where the barn is, On that side, that's the 4 spots for the employees. I think that.
Yeah, so just where that barn, it looks
Yeah.
constraint there, if.
Or
where
a
it-
little past it, between the wooden shed and the existing parking area.
Right, yep.
For the 4 employees, and then you'd
Well,
have
You're the engineer, you figure it
Yes.
out.
And then
As
you'd
long
ha-
as the headlights are not facing the
Yep.
other neighbor where we saw where her house is. If they're facing towards the back, it won't affect her.
Right.
and I think you should be able to get the 10 spots in that area.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
you should, yeah.
We'll
So
work
the-
something up. I understand what your
Okay,
concern is.
that's my comment on that. And then the walkways, I was a little bit unclear about the one going to the front. Is the entrance in the front or in the back?
So the
facility?
entrance in the front is ADA compliant. There's a ramp in the front, so that's why the sidewalk is extending there from the handicap spots. Majority of the people use the side entrance that the sidewalk extends to the side of the building. So
Oh,
we
okay.
have both for means of ADA access as well as just normal operation.
Okay. Are you proposing any landscape in the area that I see cross-haired all along there?
No, so that area along the front of Shank Road, the property actually goes out to the center of the roadway. So we're proposing to give that back to the township to create the proper right-of-way and do a 20-foot dedication. And that would be by deed. I know that's
That's
one
where
of
the red line is that I see on the map?
Yes, that is correct.
So that whole crosshair area is gonna be rededicated back to the township?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the other thing as we're looking at the front. I know that the front yard setback is 75 feet is required, minimum front yard setback. The existing structure, once we give the dedication back, will have a 44-foot front yard setback. Now, again, the structure is out there, it exists, it's not moving. We're moving the property line by dedicating it out. So we're asking for that relief for the
So
existing
you need
non-conforming.
relief for that. What about the barn in the back? Do you need relief for that too?
Yes, that is correct. So on the side yard, 40 feet is required. We have 32.47, I believe. Again, the setback is closest to the commercial property. It's an existing barn, existing structure. We're not changing, but we're asking for that relief.
Excuse me, why are you
Yes.
dedicating that land back to the town? For what purpose?
Right away.
Yeah, because the property goes to center of the road right now, so she doesn't want to own the road. She wants to give it back to you guys. You guys should own the road.
She doesn't wanna have to snowplow that part. So, you're not proposing any kind of, landscape buffering, at least to block some of the parking lot area?
That is correct. Right now, we're not proposing any. The parking is set back off of Shank Road, and as I indicated before, we're removing the spots like your suggestion. That property on the west, their home is 300 feet away, and there's an existing tree buffer already along the western
No,
property
I was just
line.
thinking of the people across on the other side of Shank Road that you were mentioning. where
Yeah,
somebody
so,
moved.
I mean, those people, we have Shank Road, their house is set 400 feet away from,
Okay, you
So-
answered the
Yeah,
question.
and just to follow up on Kate, I thought you hadn't even mentioned that there was gonna be some buffering, going on the property. Was that not your understanding?
She said maybe we'll hear it.
I was mostly talking about the stream buffer in
Okay.
the rear.
Okay.
So it was, and that was, yeah, but we haven't, there is technically a buffer requirement
Okay.
because it's gonna be a non-residential use, so.
We'll certainly look
yeah.
at buffering when we go back and take a look at the parking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where the parking spots go back, you put the buffering right there along the
Yeah,
street.
we'll
kinda-
definitely take a look
yeah.
at that.
Yeah, if you look at item number 4 in my report, that addresses buffering.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank
It was
you.
more about, the comment before was about the stream corridor and the trees.
Are you
Okay.
presenting a planner, you said, right? Is there not a planner? Yeah, so we'll have to bring that, when she talks, we'll see what she says, and then you can bring that up. You'll
Can I
let,
ask a quick question?
No, I
Is
know,
there
I was just for Jason's reference, what the
Yeah, yeah.
standards are for buffers.
no,
Yes.
but if that's one,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, if that's one of your points on the letter, I'm sure she's gonna address your points on the letter and say, we'll do that or not do that, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm not saying that they haven't done it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, okay, I'm sorry, we had a little, it's 9:08 and I'm debating
think
how
Lori
far
had a
we gotta
question.
let this
Can
go.
I just ask one question, only because
Yeah, go ahead.
heard what I
You can ask as many as you
thought
like.
someone was asking? There's one way in into the driveway. Is there gonna be a sign or something?
Yes, we would have traffic control sign, and the exit only will have do not enter signs.
No, I
in
don't
one
mean
ways.
like enter and like I'm thinking for the classes, for people who are new, if they
Right.
missed the driveway, what's gonna happen is they're all gonna K-turn on Shank Road. They're not gonna go to the next street. Logically, they're gonna K-turn someone's driveway. To prevent that, is there any signage proposed, like, so people know where the classes are?
Right now, there is none as part of the application, but I do understand what your comment is. We can always put a small directional sign indicating, they're like 2 by 3, small off
Even
the
if you're
ground.
off of
To
34.
identify, this is the location.
Is that
so.
anything that's allowed, or we gotta do something about that? A sign, if they wanna put some sign of directional sign, is that allowed?
It depends. I mean, this is a residential zone, so typically the signage is not permitted, but, I think it's, typically appropriate for a commercial zone. They would just have to show us what they wanna do. Anything that's like, one way, do not enter, that's obviously permitted. But anything that's like, like welcome to, here we are, the Tranquil Inspirations,
You
that,
didn't even get to, I was gonna ask that question, but I didn't wanna jump the gun.
yeah.
If you're gonna have a sign describing the business,
Yeah, we currently do not have any proposed signage, but I think that's a good point about just having a little directional signage at the entrance so that people can identify where to turn, makes sense. And I was saying, a lot of times you see them 2 by 3 signs and not even a large sign on the ground that just identifies, so when you're pulling up, it catches your attention to pull in.
yeah, the name of the
Yeah.
the business.
Yeah,
would
Tranquil
enter here.
Inspirations, and with an arrow pointing
Yeah,
here.
right.
I think something very subtle, low to the ground, small sign, I think would be appropriate.
And then on the other side, will you have a sign that says, so that if somebody's on Shank Road, say, exit only? so
It
they
says
don't
do
come in
not
that way?
do not enter on that.
Oh, it's gonna be 2 signs or 1 sign?
Two signs,
On each side of the driveway that says do not enter,
that is
exit
correct,
only.
yes.
Okay.
And on the side that's on the site side, it will be stop signs.
Okay. So, okay, I'll let you keep going, keep going.
So
We'll go
that's
another
really
about
my
10
full
minutes.
testimony. I know there was a couple variances and waivers. I did mention a couple about the front yard setback, the barn side yard setback. There was a waiver from section 3080 of the ordinance that requires Belgian block curb or alternating means to address the edge of pavement. So we are seeking a waiver from that. The pavement that we're proposing, we don't want to concentrate flows by putting curb in there. So we're letting it flow overland like it does today with our porous pavement as a means to mitigate that. Where the parking spots are, we're putting in concrete wheel stops, so that'll prevent the car from hitting the edge of the pavement. So we think that's appropriate, but we're asking for that waiver.
And these are the things that we'll have Greg, our engineer, comment on.
Yep.
If you wanna say something now about that?
You wanna finish, or I can go through my question?
Okay, we'll save it then for the
Okay.
end. Just remember what his point that he's asking for. Go ahead. Because I'm thinking that we're gonna have a hard stop at 9:30.
Okay. So there's just two items, and the planner is going to provide additional support for these, but section 3054, the residential buffers are required where any non-residential use abuts a residential zone. It says a strip of land, 20% of the average width and depth of the property shall be the buffer. The property in the front's got 270, in the back's 105. If I take the average to get the width, it becomes 187.50. 20% of that would be 37 feet and 37.5 feet. Where we had the parking currently in some of the driveway, we encroach into that buffer area. The whole reason why we were having the parking there is we're trying to keep everything away from the environmentally sensitive side up on that piece of the property and keep the improvements near the building where the parking, where the driveway exists now, but where the parking is appropriate. We know we're gonna modify some of that parking, so we'll increase that buffer there, but we're still gonna be asking for that relief. Again, these are daytime activities, no headlights. We're gonna manage that to be internally lit, so we'll be asking for some relief on the buffer. And then the last one was section 3080A, which is each driveway shall be set 20 feet from the property line. Our western driveway is set 15 feet from the property line, which is an improvement from the existing condition. At that location, we're asking for the relief to allow 15 feet rather than 20 feet. On the eastern side, that's the entrance that abuts the commercial property. Currently, it's 3 feet in width, separation from the commercial property. And the reason for that is just west of the driveway as you enter in is the location of the existing septic disposal field. So we can't encroach the driveway over top of that. We are close to the commercial property, but along the commercial property and our property line, there's a heavily buffered area there. With the fire officials' request, we're probably going to even encroach further on that 3 feet of the property line to get the 22-foot width. But again, if that's appropriate for public safety, that's the relief we'd be asking for.
Okay, so we have like 15 more minutes left. So Greg, I don't want to rush you, but do you think you can get done in 15 minutes? If not, we'll save you for the next hearing.
My question will be very short. I think Mr.
The mic.
I'm sorry. I think I had. Can you hear me
You
now?
just had it turned off.
I had
It
it
should be-
turned
it's
on.
on now.
It's on.
Yeah, take that away. Is it red? There's a red
It's
light
red.
there?
Yeah, we're good. Sorry.
Okay, so just so the public knows, we're gonna cut this off at 9:30, so I'm gonna let our engineer ask questions. So if you have comments, questions that you wanna ask the engineer, he'll be back next meeting, whatever date we pick for that, and you can save them and write them down to ask the questions.
I
We're
should be
not-
no more than a couple of minutes.
We're
Mr.
not
Chairman.
gonna have time to get everybody in
Okay.
in 15 minutes.
So, Mr. French really talked through most of the comments that I had in my letter. The one item that I wanted to just make sure the board understands when Mr. French was talking about porous pavement. So what I don't know if the board has experience with this yet, but basically what it is, it's an asphalt pavement that a lot of the fines are removed from the actual pavement, which provides voids that allows water to seep through. And if you look at the details, there's a stone area underneath it that actually allows for water to sit. Now, we'll work with Mr. French's office and make sure that it functions properly. We'll do some minor soil testing, make sure there is infiltration so the water will leave, and we'll make sure that that all works properly. As far as the Belgian block curbing that Mr. French alluded to, basically the ordinance talks about means to define the edge of pavement. And my thought is you don't want people driving off the edge of pavement that breaks the pavement. But again, I don't want to see Belgian block curbing go up. It's an expense to the owner, and it'll concentrate flows. And I think it'll do more harm than good. So I'm thinking maybe if you want to do like a simple stripe 1 foot off the edge of pavement, so it kind of directs the people down a driveway and gives them a visual way to follow and not get close to the edges. So that was my thought. If the board wants to,
You know, being an EMS driver, I concur, going in some driveways and bumping up Belgium car is definitely not too good for the ambulance. So I kind of agree, and also I think it'll add, to have that, it would be a detriment to the effect of our property.
Agreed.
Yeah,
So
we're trying to keep that rural feel.
Yeah,
I mean,
I like,
yeah.
I
we're
I
not
don't know how
opposed to
everybody
do
else
the
on board
striping
feels.
if the board
How do
feels
the rest
that.
of the board feel on that? You want to see Belgian block or no Belgian block? Going all the way around?
I think it affects the drainage, so it sounds good to me that the water's able to drain off to the side of the pavement, the
Yeah.
porous
Yes.
pavement. That'll help with the stormwater management, so I think it makes sense to me.
Anybody else? Francine, you're okay? No Belgian block?
I would agree.
Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
And then going through most of the other comments, you know, we could work it out with Mr. French's office. They're going to need a soil sediment control certification from the SCD district. To talk a little bit about the flood hazard area, just to give everybody a little bit of a feel. The river is, I think it's about 125, 126 elevation-ish. So the 10-foot, per the calculations Mr. French alluded to, brings you up to about 136 is where the floodwaters would reach. And the farm, which is, I believe, lower than a house, is at 157. So you can see there's a 20-foot difference between the flood area and the improvement, so it shouldn't be an issue. Most of that farm area in the back is within a 300-foot buffer. And what the DEP requirements are is that there is no change in the current vegetation in that riparian zone, which is something that the applicant is proposing to leave and keep the vegetation as it is as a farm. So I think the intent is really to meet all those DEP requirements. Other than that, I think Mr. French really hit everything on my report, and I really had no other questions for the engineer.
Okay, one thing, Mr. French, we didn't talk about was the traffic safety officer's comments on the report. We said we'd save it for later.
Yep.
You didn't mention anything about all those items that they have. That's done by the police.
Yeah, so, he makes mention about accessible parking spaces. We comply with that. No parking signage along the one-way loop. We will add in the fire lane signage, no parking. That should take care of that one. Describing the pickup and drop-off at queues should not back up into Shank Road. Absolutely will not back up into Shank Road. This is very low intensity, managed internally. Ensure roadway vegetation is in compliance with Holmdel Ordinance 17.2. It says appears several trees are in violation of the township ordinance, interfere with safe visibility. I did go out and take a look at the exiting driveway, and as you looked, when you're exiting to the right, there is 2 black walnut trees, a third tree that's cut off at the top that will need to be removed for a safe sight distance. The black walnut trees are covered with poison ivy. They're growing through the overhead utility lines. They should just come down anyway so that they're not a hazard, but that'll free the sight distance looking for people making lefts out of the driveway. Also, when you're looking to make a right out of the driveway, we think that's going to be minimal movement. When you look towards your left, there's a couple evergreen trees in the front of the property that will have to be removed, and then some trimmed and pruned back for good, safe sight distance.
Okay.
Any tree that we do take down, the applicant owners indicated they will plant a tree back on the property to manage that replacement.
Near the parking area.
Near the parking areas, exactly, Chairman. And then suggest, it says, consider crosswalk signage for pedestrians at one-way driveway to access to rear buildings. We can certainly provide a crosswalk there for when, the outdoor activity is going to cross over the driveway.
Yep.
And then
Good point.
he does ask for pedestrian protection bollards. We don't feel that that is necessary. There's a fenced-in area. This is traffic that's going at low speeds. Anybody that's coming in here is a parent or a staff, and they better not be driving fast or they're not going to be coming back.
When they're late for work, you don't know what they do.
Well, still, when you know you're dropping off your kid, you're going to be safe. So,
I have a comment that I forgot to bring up before, was that being that I'm the ES driver of the vehicle, if I come into your site and I'm expecting that I would stop at where the handicap area is, and then I guess in order to get the stretcher in, I would have to go around the front to the handicap ramp, right? And that would get me right into the building. And is there, the steps in the back, is that what, 3 or 4 steps there?
yes. I think 2 or 3. I had to verify.
Okay,
that, but
so
yes.
I know this is gonna sound unusual, but it'd be a nice thing to put a small sign on the front area that said ambulance entrance, so that if I'm not a driver, which drive a lot, somebody else comes along, they know where to go, because they'll be trying to come down the back, they won't know how to get into the building. Sounds silly, but it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for public safety and
Yeah.
the best way
And
to
I mean,
handle it.
I'm not saying we're gonna go there, but we go to a lot of nursing and
Yeah.
child care centers and schools all the time, and that's like our biggest concern, is how do we find our way in?
Right. So, Chairman, if you have the sign type or what you're looking for, we'd happy to do
Something
that.
so that, if you're an ambulance driver or police or anybody, they know the easiest way to get into the building. Which way do you want us to come in from?
Okay.
Because if we're gonna come in the back, then we have to go up steps. So we're not gonna pick up the stretcher to go up steps, so we're gonna have to come the front.
So
But
you
the
prefer
police
the
could
front,
come the back
okay.
easily. They're just walking in.
Right. So
So-
the signage should direct them that they're coming into the front of.
Yeah, I mean, I know that, and I can tell everybody else, if this application gets approved, what's the best way to come into the site. But lately, we have a lot of buildings that are going up in town, and it's always our concern, is how do we get in there the quickest way?
Right. Okay.
All right, you guys have any other questions or comments? I'm doing a lot of talking today. Nobody has anything else? All right, so, your report was, you finished everything in your testimony, so next time, we'll open it up to the public, for your questioning, and then we'll go right into your plan. So we gotta find a date, so tell us a date.
Available dates we have is August 20th, September 3rd, September 17th. September 3rd and September 17th.
August 20th, is that what you said?
Yeah, there was a question about August 20th.
Yeah,
Is
did we
that-
have enough
is
people that day?
is that-
It seems we do,
Okay.
as of now. Okay.
What date did we pick?
August 20th.
Okay, so if you're gonna make any revisions, Mr. French, on the plans for anything we talked about tonight, will you have enough time to supply that 10 days before that August 20th meeting at least?
At least 10
Yes.
days.
Yes.
At least 10 days, and not more.
How many more? Not gonna be a lot of changes.
Well, maybe not, but whatever it is,
How about August 1st?
that's up to my secretary. She loves it
August
sooner
1st is
better.
fine. That's
Thank you,
perfect.
Thank you.
It's the parking lot, and then possibly, after you speak with the fire department, widening the road
Yes.
there.
Are you gonna
Right.
contact the chief yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, because if we can get all those things on a plan, this way, hopefully, maybe we can vote on this in the next meeting.
That would be fantastic.
We'll have it all wrapped up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yes, okay, so for the public, there's not gonna be any letters or notices. The date is August 20th. This is the only notice you're gonna get, so tell all your friends and neighbors who are interested in this.
Can I have motion and second?
Motion? Vinnie, make a motion.
Motion to close the meeting.
No, motion to carry.
To carry. Motion to carry. Okay.
I'll second it.
Mr. Berkeley? You made a
Yes.
motion?
Okay.
All in
Voice
favor?
vote?
Aye.
Yeah, aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the board, we appreciate your time.
Thank you. We have any professional reports? Any report?
Nothing for me.
Okay, thank
The
you.
motion to close
Motion to close.
and second? I'm sorry, who motioned?
I think Dimitri.
Dimitri motion by second.